Chapter 189. This bunch of people seems to be very confident. Receiving the secret document, Lu Ming did not obstruct the shadow guard from leaving. His expression was still cold, and no one knew what he was thinking in his heart. Haha, I never thought that I, Lu Ming, would have such a day. Prince Jin Chuan, if you want me to betray the Emperor, then you have to pay the price. Lu Ming looked at the secret document for a while. In the next moment, the corner of his mouth curled up and revealed a cold smile. Following which, a streak of elemental energy flames surged out from his palm and burned the secret document. At the same time, he flew towards the direction of the Imperial City. As the commander of the Steel Army, Lu Ming's strength was not ordinary. Naturally, he received the attention of many powers, including Prince Jin Chuan. Although Lu Ming had always been the trusted aide of Emperor Chu Tianyang, Chuan did not give up on trying to rope him in. Firstly, he knew Lu Ming's personality. He had always been selfish. Secondly, in the face of great benefits, it was impossible for him not to be moved. Furthermore, Chuan had been secretly contacting Lu Ming all these years, trying to rope him in. Although Lu Ming had worked hard for Emperor Chu Tianyang for many years and was favored by the Emperor, Chuan was very clear that Lu Ming would not be satisfied with this. If there were greater benefits in front of him, Lu Ming would definitely betray him. Furthermore, even if Lu Ming wasn't willing to betray him and insisted on working for Chu Tianyang, Chuan wasn't afraid at all. After all, he also had the ironclad army in his hand. At the same time, he also had a group of powerful death warriors known as the Shadow Squad. After all these years of concealing his strength, Prince Jin Chuan had accumulated a strong foundation. The troops under him were strong and the experts were as common as clouds. It was comparable to half of the Dachu dynasty. His strength was already comparable to the great Chu imperial court and the royal family. Imperial City, North City, Steel Army Camp. Yang Qing, after not seeing you for so long, your strength has not improved at all. In one of the main tents, the second commander, Yang Qing, was sitting cross-legged. His hands were forming a spell, as if he was cultivating some sort of mantra. In the next moment, a sinister male voice sounded from outside, causing Yang Qing's body to jerk and his face to turn pale. Senior Commander? Yang Qing's pupils shrank as he heard the voice. He saw a middle-aged man in a black robe standing behind him quietly. He was the commander of the Steel Army, Lu Ming. It's me, but you seem to be the same as before. Seeing Yang Qing's reaction, Lu Ming sneered. After that, he stepped forward and leaned on the main seat in the middle of the tent as he said plainly. It had been almost a year since he went out to train. During this time, Lu Ming wasn't in the royal city, so the matters of the Steel Army were naturally handled by Yang Qing. After all, his cultivation had reached the 7th level of the Star Realm, and was second only to Lu Ming in the army. Grand Commander, it's been a year since you left the Imperial City. How time flies. Looking at Lu Ming, whose aura was as dense as the abyss, Yang Qing retracted his expression and sighed. For some reason, he had a feeling in his heart that Lu Ming's strength seemed to have become stronger than a year ago, and it wasn't just by a little bit. This guy only went out to train for a year. Don't tell me his cultivation had a breakthrough again? The shrewd Yang Qing thought to himself. However, he still had a smile on his face, and no one could tell what he was thinking. That's true. Did anything happen in the royal city during this time? Just as he finished speaking, Lu Ming opened his mouth to ask. Replying to Grand Commander, it will be the start of the World Conference of Heroes soon. Princess Lu Yuan will also be holding a martial tea gathering in her residence. During this time, many martial artists have entered the royal city, and it's very lively. Facing Lu Ming's question, Yang Qing did not dare to delay as he clasped his hands and replied. Her Highness Martial Tea Gathering is just a fun event for the youngsters. As for the World Conference of Heroes, it's just a bunch of immature kids fighting. It's not a big deal. Yang Qing, you've been under me for so many years. Don't tell me you think it's a big deal, lightly spitting. Lu Ming's tone was disdainful, as if he had expected Yang Qing's reply. Grand Commander is wise. But to be honest, something happened in the army recently, and it was beyond the expectations of many. Seeing the other party's disdainful expression, Yang Qing's eyes flickered. The anger that had yet to rise in his heart was suppressed again. Following which, he spoke about how Fei Ren crippled Wang Xinqing and how Chang Qingshan defeated Xing Wenchong with a serious tone. What? Chang Qingshan's cultivation is only at level 1 of the high star realm. How could he defeat Xing Wenchong? Hearing this, Lu Ming's eyes squinted, as if he was a little surprised. After all, the other party was once a favorite of his subordinate. That's right. Ever since Chang Qingshan returned from training in the northern wilderness county, his strength has increased. He's already at level 2 of the high star realm, without denying it, Yang Qing continued. Useless thing. Even Chang Qingshan, who's only at level 2 of the high star realm, could defeat him. Xing Wenchong, I've been taking care of him in vain. He's really a disgrace to me. Clenching his fist, Lu Ming's face was a little ugly. In the next moment, he slowly released his fist and snorted. Whatever, this useless thing deserves to lose. Looks like I've underestimated Chang Qingshan in the past. I'll have to take care of him in the future. Although Xing Wenchong was a subordinate that he thought highly of in the past, in Lu Ming's heart, the other party was just a lackey that he could do without. Furthermore, Chang Qingshan was also a general under his command. Naturally, he wouldn't blame Chang Qingshan for such a small matter. In Lu Ming's eyes, as long as the other party was strong enough and could be used by him, it was good. As for other matters, they weren't important. Oh yes, you said that a wandering cultivator called Fei Ren crippled Wang Xinqing? Retracting his thoughts, Lu Ming opened his mouth again and his expression turned serious. Compared to Chang Qingshan who defeated Xing Wenchong, the Fei Ren that Yang Qing spoke of was only at level 2 of the high star realm. Not only did he defeat Wang Xinqing, who was at level 5 of the high star realm, he even crippled one of Wang Xinqing's arms in front of everyone. Such strength was unbelievable. One must know that for a high star realm martial artist, the difference in strength between every level was huge. Furthermore, as the third commander of the Steel Corps, Wang Xinqing's strength wasn't weak either. However, he still couldn't defeat Fei Ren, who was only at level 2 of the high star realm. This was enough to show how strong Fei Ren's talent was. That's right, nodding his head, Yang Qing opened his mouth and spoke with the same tone. Fei Ren, I seem to have heard this name before. Don't tell me it's the brat that Xiaoba mentioned? Squinting his eyes, Lu Ming's expression was also uncertain. Following which, his pupils shrunk as if he recalled something. Commander, what's wrong? Seeing Lu Ming's expression flickering, Yang Qing also took a step forward. Nothing, Yang Qing. You can leave first. Shooting a glance at Yang Qing, Lu Ming immediately retracted his expression and waved his hand as he said plainly. It should be this brat. Chuan is indeed impressive to be able to recruit such a talent. Looks like I have to change my mind. After Yang Qing left, Lu Ming also leaned on the main seat with a serious expression. As the saying goes, a man is afraid of being famous while a pig is afraid of being fat. Imperial City, a certain inn. At this moment, Fei Ren was still silently cultivating. He didn't know that he had already become famous in the Steel Corps. At the same time, he had also left a deep impression in Lu Ming's heart. It was as if he didn't care about what was happening outside. Chapter 190. Unknowingly, a few days had passed and Fei Ren was still cultivating in seclusion, seeking a breakthrough in his cultivation method. Imperial City, a certain inn. The heavens are helping me. The Dharma 1000 transformation technique has finally stepped into the initial stage. Suddenly, the silence in the room was broken by a long laugh. The next moment, Fei Ren pushed the door open with a happy face. After these days of seclusion, his Dharma Thousand transformation technique had finally broken through and officially stepped into the initial stage. At the same time, he was able to condense his own acquired tyrant body, the Dharma Golden Buddha body. However, Fei Ren was still not familiar with the Dharma Thousand transformation technique and had just broken through to the initial stage. Therefore, the power of the Dharma Golden Buddha body was limited. It was not the complete form of the acquired tyrant body, but only a part. Although it was only a part of the acquired tyrant body, its power could not be underestimated. Fei Ren could now use the Dharma Thousand transformation technique's golden essence energy to transform his arms into powerful Dharma golden arms. Whether it was defense or attack, they would increase by several folds. Moreover, ordinary spiritual treasures would not be able to harm them. With my current strength, as long as I don't encounter the old fellows from the 3 and 9 ranks of the great families and the top experts from the Imperial Chu clan, those so-called young geniuses in the entire Imperial City are no match for me. Thinking of this, Fei Ren secretly clenched his fists as a trace of gratification appeared on his handsome face. This trip to the Imperial City could be said to have benefited him a lot. Not only did his essence energy cultivation achieve a breakthrough, but he also obtained the treasure of the Alchemist Guild's forbidden area, the Pill Tower. It was a rare 9th grade cultivation method, the Dharma Thousand transformation technique. In addition, Fei Ren's mental energy had successfully stepped into the 3rd layer of the profound martial realm, which was comparable to a 3rd grade alchemist. Moreover, he had met Situ Lai and the others. It's time to go out and get some fresh air. After stretching his waist, Fei Ren turned around and left. Currently, he was already penniless. Other than the spirit treasures, the Azure Dragon halberd and the Universe 8 trigrams flag, there were only some low-level medicinal ingredients and miscellaneous items left in his spirit ring. He didn't even see the shadow of a demon core or origin stone. If he wanted to refine some medicinal pills, it was like a clever housewife couldn't cook a meal without rice, so he had no choice but to go out and fish for some oil and water. For a top alchemist, as long as there were enough medicinal herbs and magic cores, there would be no need to worry about not having enough medicinal herbs and magic cores. Moreover, there would be no need to look for medicinal herbs and magic cores on their own. As long as a little bit of news was released, there would naturally be countless forces licking their faces and delivering all kinds of resources to their door. Although Fei Ren wasn't a top-notch alchemist and was only a grade 1 alchemist, he didn't have to worry about the problem of medicinal herbs and magic nuclei. With his current cultivation strength, it was a piece of cake for him to get some medicinal herbs and magic nuclei. Now, magical beasts below the profound rank were not Fei Ren's opponent at all. As long as he went out to experience and come back, he could easily harvest a large pile of magic nuclei. Moreover, compared to hunting magical beasts, killing people and robbing them was also one of the ways for warriors to quickly accumulate wealth. In first floor lobby, sir, you've finally come out. Seeing Fei Ren come down the stairs, a grey-clothed manservant at the side hurriedly greeted him. It seemed that he had been waiting for a long time. Is something the matter? Seeing the grey-clothed manservant come up to him, Fei Ren was stunned for a moment and raised his eyebrows slightly. Because this was the Imperial City, the strength of most warriors was not low. The grey-clothed manservant in front of him was the same. Although he was only a small waiter in the inn, he also had the Yuan power cultivation of the 4th level of the Middle Union boundary. However, facing Fei Ren at this time, the grey-clothed manservant was unusually respectful, like a commoner meeting an official. Such an attitude made Fei Ren slightly surprised. You are Sir Fei Ren, right? Previously, there were 2 officials from the County Lord's mansion who came to pass a message and specifically asked me to pass this invitation to you. As his voice fell, the grey-clothed manservant nodded and bowed. Then, He took out a dark green invitation from the spirit ring on his finger and immediately handed it to Feyren. An invitation from the county lord's mansion? Could it be? Reaching out to take the invitation, Feyren's expression was slightly stunned, and then his mind trembled. Previously, he had been in seclusion in his room and had almost forgotten that today was the day of Princess Lu Yuan's martial tea gathering. Unlucky, how did she know about me? Could it be that I was too ruthless in the Steel Corps that day, and the matter has spread? Thinking of this, Feyren guessed that this invitation was probably from Princess Lu Yuan inviting him to the county lord's mansion to participate in some martial tea gathering. There was no other reason other than that he had crippled Wang Xinqing, a veteran High Star Realm warrior, and his strength was not ordinary. After all, Princess Lu Yuan's martial tea gatherings requirements were not low. Apart from strength, the participants were basically the best of the younger generation. Collecting his thoughts, Feyren's gaze swept over. He saw that the surface of the dark green invitation faintly appeared with a thin layer of origin power barrier. If someone tore the invitation without permission, the origin power barrier wrapped in it would explode, and at the same time, the invitation would be completely destroyed. It could be said that the method was exquisite. It's just an invitation, and yet there's a small defensive formation. Is it afraid that others will know the contents inside? But it's easy to guess with one's toes. In the next moment, Feyren also noticed the little trick in the invitation card. He immediately broke into a smile. "Sir, the invitation has been delivered. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first." At this time, the grey-clothed manservant also bowed and said weakly. Although he did not know the origin of Feyren in front of him and how strong he was, people who could make the county lord's mansion send out an invitation were generally not ordinary people. After all, everyone in the imperial city knew that the current emperor's most beloved daughter was Princess Lu Yuan. Princess Lu Yuan was also the only member of the royal family in the imperial city who had been conferred the title of Princess Royal and had her own county lord's mansion. As for the other princesses of the royal family, apart from a small title, their mansions could only be called dukes' mansions. Whether it was fame or status, they were far inferior. For Feyren to be able to receive Princess Lu Yuan's invitation to participate in the martial tea gathering, even if he did not become an official in the future, he would definitely be a powerful warrior, not inferior to some of the high officials in the imperial court. Therefore, this grey-clothed manservant respectfully called him sir, which was not a flattery. This is your reward. Take it." Nodding his head, Feyren also took out a small bottle of pills from his spirit ring and threw it to the grey-clothed manservant opposite him. These pills were refined when he was bored during his closed-door training. Although the grades were not high and they were all first-grade pills, the quality of the pills was not bad. Most of them had reached 90% and above. Even if they were to be sold, they could be exchanged for thousands of inferior-grade origin stones. "Thank you, sir." Hurriedly receiving the small bottle, the grey-clothed manservant's eyes lit up. He immediately thanked him respectfully and hurriedly left. Although his strength was very weak, he still had some eyesight. Naturally, he could see that the small bottle of pills in Feyren's hand was not bad. It was enough to exchange for many inferior-grade origin stones. Naturally, he was overjoyed. Chapter 191. In front of the princess's residence in the imperial city, 2 guards with weapons in their hands were standing guard, surrounded by high walls. It was obviously heavily guarded. "Stop!" Before Feyren could get close, one of the guards suddenly stepped forward and stopped him with a serious expression. "This is the princess's residence. Unauthorized people are not allowed to enter." The Feyren in front of him was dressed in ordinary clothes and looked very ordinary. He didn't look like a young genius with a strong background. Therefore, the guard subconsciously thought that the other party was just an ordinary warrior and didn't think too much about it. After all, The princess's residence was the residence of the current princess, Chu Qian. As a guard of the princess's residence, if he accidentally let some random people in and was blamed by the princess, he wouldn't be able to keep his head. Brothers, you've misunderstood. I'm the princess's guest. Fei Ren did not care when he saw that the guard had stopped him. He immediately took out a dark green invitation card from the spirit ring on his finger. In the next moment, he flicked it toward the guard. His tone was calm and unhurried. The origin power of the two guards at the door had reached the first level of the star realm. Although their strength was not bad, they were no match for him. Fei Ren could easily kill them with one move. However, he was in the princess's residence, and the other party was a guard under Chu Qian. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he didn't want to cause trouble for himself. Moreover, Fei Ren did have the invitation card sent by Chu Qian, so he wasn't an outsider. If the guards insisted on blocking his way, then he wouldn't go. After all, he wasn't interested in the martial arts tea party at all. Now, Fei Ren only wanted to fight with the top young geniuses of the Darchu dynasty in the World Assembly of Heroes in a couple of days and temper his strength. As for coming to participate in the martial tea gathering this time, it was purely for the sake of freeloading, and he was prepared to be a spectator. It's really an invitation card sent by the princess. This handwriting still has the aura of a small formation left behind. There's no mistake. His gaze was slightly suspicious. The next moment, the guard also raised his hand to take the invitation card and then exclaimed in surprise, "I have offended you before, please forgive me, please." After looking at the invitation card again, the two guards looked at each other in dismay. In the next moment, they consciously retreated to the side to make a path, and then spoke in unison. Those who could obtain the invitation of Princess Lu Yuan Chu Qian to attend the martial arts tea party were basically the young geniuses of the various large families or sections. They were not people that the guards of the princess's residence could afford to offend. Although the Fei Ren in front of them looked ordinary, his background and strength had already crushed them. Therefore, the two bodyguards naturally didn't dare to be negligent, fearing that the other party would flare up on the spot. After all, if Princess Lu Yuan herself found out that they had intercepted an important guest of the residence, they would receive a heavy punishment. Schwa! However, what surprised the two guards was that Fei Ren did not seem to care about them at all. Instead, his figure flashed, and he instantly escaped into the princess's mansion. What a fast speed! Is this the aura of the younger generation of the large families and sects? Seeing Fei Ren disappear in the blink of an eye, the two guards' faces turned cold with shock. Arriving at the interior of the princess's residence, there were fake mountains and green waters along the way, and the scenery was enchanting. However, Fei Ren didn't have the slightest intention of admiring it. He only wanted to finish this as soon as possible, eat and drink his fill, and then slip away. Such a magnificent residence. Princess Lu Yuan is indeed the eldest princess who is loved by the emperor. I'm afraid that even some of the direct descendants of the princes don't have such treatment. After bypassing a few large courtyards and gardens, Fei Ren's face was also slightly surprised. The area of the princess's residence in front of him seemed to be even larger than he had imagined. Along the way, he had met no less than hundreds of maids and servants, but he still hadn't reached the center of the princess's residence. Damn, I seem to be lost. After turning into another courtyard, Fei Ren's expression was awkward. The scenery before him was still beautiful and pleasant, but he had a feeling in his heart that he seemed to have circled around and returned to the starting point, like a headless fly. Young man, are you here to participate in the princess's martial arts tea party? At this moment, an old chuckle slowly came from behind. In the next moment, a white-haired old man in linen clothes walked up to Fei Ren. The white-haired old man's eyes were narrowed into slits, and his old face was full of wrinkles. When he smiled, it was like a blooming chrysanthemum. Yes, I am. May I ask who you are? Facing the white-haired old man who suddenly appeared in front of him, Fei Ren immediately cupped his hands and asked in return. Although the other party's body was thin and his face was old, his eyes were deep and sharp, and the aura on his body was also unfathomable. It was obvious that he was a veteran expert who had immersed himself in martial arts cultivation for many years. His origin power cultivation was at least at the 8th level of the star realm. Moreover, an ordinary old man couldn't walk around casually in the princess's heavily guarded residence without being watched by anyone. It was obvious that the other party's status was not low, so Fei Ren naturally didn't dare to slight him. "I'm a housekeeper of the princess's residence. You can call me Uncle Fong. I saw that you seemed to be lost, so I came to ask you. If you're here to participate in the princess's martial arts tea party, I can take you there." In response to Fei Ren's question, the white-haired old man named Uncle Fong stroked his long beard and smiled faintly. His tone was casual. "Uncle Fong, thank you very much." Regardless of the other party's status and strength, Fei Ren was naturally happy to accompany someone who was willing to lead the way. After a while, under Uncle Fong's guidance, Fei Ren finally arrived at the center of the princess's residence. There was an even larger courtyard, and as far as the eye could see, there were flowers, grass, clear ponds, and clear water everywhere. In the center of the courtyard sat a simple stone pavilion, and a figure could be seen within. "This is the place, young man. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. Senior, take care." At this moment, Uncle Fong said with a smile. He then turned around and left. Fei Ren also politely bowed towards him. "This old man's strength is at least at the 8th level of the Star Realm, and he's even stronger than Lu Ming of the Steel Corps. Such a person is actually just a small housekeeper in the princess's residence. Everyone says that Princess Lu Yuan Chu Qian is favored by Emperor Chu Tianyang, but this is too exaggerated." Looking at Uncle Fong's gradually disappearing figure, Fei Ren's face was filled with bewilderment. "Forget it, I don't care anymore. I'll go scrounge for food first." Thinking to hear, Fei Ren also shook his head, then retracted his thoughts and flew towards the stone pavilion in the middle of the courtyard. "I wonder if anyone will be able to obtain the princess's favor this year. I think it'll be difficult. In the past, there were many geniuses with extraordinary strength, but none of them were able to enter the princess's eyes." That makes sense. Not only is the princess talented and strong, she has also always liked to drink tea. If both the way of tea and the way of martial arts are top-notch, there might be a chance to get close to her. Just as Fei Ren approached the stone pavilion, a few discussions slowly entered his ears. Looking up, he saw that there were many figures gathered around the stone pavilion. They were basically the younger generation of the various forces in the Imperial City, and most of them were at the 9th level of the Middle Unity Realm or above. There were almost no weaklings. However, the host had yet to appear, and Princess Lu Yuan Chu Qian was not among the people present. It seemed that the martial tea party had not officially begun. Chapter 192. Damn, it's really just a tea party. Arriving at the side of the stone pavilion, Fei Ren swept his gaze forward, and then his expression was slightly stunned. There were many tea sets and stone tables placed in front of everyone. However, there was nothing else apart from a cup of clear tea. There were no exotic delicacies. His previous idea of coming over to eat and drink had been foiled because of this. "Brother, could it be that this is your first time participating in the martial arts tea party?" Princess Lu Yuan's martial arts tea party is not a banquet. It's mainly for martial arts, tea tasting, and Tao discussion. Naturally, there won't be any extravagant fish or meat. When he saw Fei Ren staring at him, one of the family disciples beside him also came forward and laughed involuntarily. "I see, this is indeed my first time participating." Faced with the reminder, Fei Ren also coughed dryly a few times. The cultivation of the family disciple in front of him was not weak. He had already reached the 10th level of the middle and high realm. His strength was about the same as Niefeng, who had died at his hands. He seemed to be from a first-rate force in the imperial city. Otherwise, he would not have been invited here by Princess Lu Yuan. Looks like I have to find a reason to escape. After stretching his waist and realizing that the surrounding young geniuses did not notice him, Fei Ren thought to himself. Since there was no food here, there was no point in him continuing to stay. The dull atmosphere of the princess's residence made him extremely uncomfortable. He did not like to stay in such a heavily guarded place. Although the scenery was pleasant, it lacked some freedom. The princess has arrived. Just as Fei Ren was about to slip away, a soft shout came from afar. In the next moment, a tall and beautiful young woman slowly walked towards the stone pavilion. Her steps were light and graceful, and behind her were two young maids who were equally beautiful. The young woman's temperament was fresh and otherworldly. At this moment, she was wearing a sky-blue pleated dress with an exquisite fragrance pouch on her waist. Her long black hair was coiled behind her slender waist at the same time, making her look like a fairy descending from the heavens. Princess! Seeing the young woman appear, everyone's expression turned cold. Then, they stood up and bowed. She is Princess Lu Yuan Chu Qian. At the sight of the crowd, Fei Ren was also stunned for a moment as he looked at the beautiful young lady in front of him. Then, he gulped. To be honest, in his memory, the purple-robed woman who killed people without blinking and slaughtered all the disciples of the Iron Palm School was beautiful and could be called a peerless beauty. However, Princess Lu Yuan Chu Qian in front of him was absolutely not bad. Is talent and strength now directly proportional to one's appearance? Thinking of this, Fei Ren grinned. Most of the women he had met over the years were beautiful and strong. Whether it was the purple-robed woman, Shun Lan, the daughter of the divine doctor who had saved his life in Forget Worry Valley, or Princess Lu Yuan Chu Qian, almost all of them were like this. Brother, what are you doing? Why aren't you greeting the princess? At the side, seeing that Fei Ren was laughing to himself, the face of the disciple who had warned him changed slightly. Then, he went forward and tugged at the corner of Fei Ren's clothes. At the same time, everyone's eyes also looked in the direction of Fei Ren. Princess, sensing that everyone's gaze was on him, Fei Ren immediately coughed lightly and then cupped his hands towards Chu Qian. The tea party will now begin. Everyone, please enjoy the tea. Glancing at Fei Ren at the edge of the crowd, Chu Qian nodded slightly. Her expression was still calm, as if she did not care about the other party's rudeness at all. Hee, where did this country bumpkin come from? He didn't even greet the princess. How rude. Look at this kid's ordinary clothes, his strength is average. I guess he's a young disciple from some second-rate force and wants to sneak in to fish for some benefits. In my opinion, the guards of the princess's mansion should be stricter. Otherwise, any trash from all walks of life can sneak in. It's simply disappointing. As soon as he sat down, before Fei Ren could drink his tea, a few mocking voices suddenly sounded in his ears. Their voices were filled with disdain. Crack! With a sudden force in his palm, Fei Ren instantly crushed the teacup in his hand. The fragments turned into dust on the ground, and at the same time, a crisp sound rang out. I say, what's the meaning of this? Can't you guys spit out ivory from your mouths? Turning his head to look at the few young geniuses, Fei Ren's expression was indifferent, and his tone gradually became cold. What? Stinking brat, you actually scolded us! You're courting death. Facing Fei Ren's response, the few young geniuses at the side were furious. Their faces flushed red, and they instantly stood up. It was as if they were about to start a fight if they didn't agree. For a moment the atmosphere was tense. It can't be, it's really him. At this time, at the edge of the crowd, a white-robed man's face was filled with shock. His eyes were wide open, and his expression was filled with disbelief. It was Long Jingqiu, who had escaped from Fei Ren's hands on the outskirts of the Imperial City that day. It's really him, Fei Ren. This guy was actually invited to participate in the martial arts tea party. Rubbing his eyes, Long Jingqiu confirmed that he wasn't seeing things. Immediately, his throat moved and his face was filled with shock. Those guys are really courting death. This time, there will be a good show to watch. Gradually restraining his expression, Long Jingqiu thought to himself. He knew clearly how terrifying Fei Ren's strength was, and the strongest among the young geniuses in front of him was only at the second level of the Star Realm. They were not a match for Fei Ren at all. You want to fight? I'll fight you anytime. Let's see who's the trash. Glancing at the young geniuses opposite him, Fei Ren smiled coldly. He was not afraid of the threat at all. The strongest among the people in front of him was only at the second level of the Star Realm, and one of them was at the 10th level of the Middle Union Realm. Even if these people attacked him together, they would not be a match for him. Now that his strength was enough to fight against a martial artist at the 8th level of the Star Realm, dealing with these small fries was naturally a piece of cake. Arrogant! Let me have a go at you! As soon as he finished speaking, a man with a hedgehog head also shouted angrily. Then, he rushed out and glared at Fei Ren. His origin power cultivation was at the first level of the Star Realm, and his origin power was fluctuating. It seemed that he had just broken through, but his strength was not bad in the outside world. Wait. Since this is the Princess Tea Party, fighting here will inevitably disturb everyone's mood. Fei Ren was not in a hurry to fight. He raised his hand and waved. At the same time, he turned to look at Chu Qian on the other side. Although he could easily kill these young geniuses, Princess Lu Yuan Chu Qian was the host, after all. Now that everyone was in the princess residence, he naturally had to consider the other party's face. He could not only care about his own limelight. He understood this rule. Martial tea gatherings have always been about tea tasting, martial arts competition, and Tao discussion. Since you insist on fighting, there's no harm in trying. Let this princess see the strength of the Imperial City's young geniuses. In the face of Fei Ren's test, Chu Qian chuckled. Her face was like a peach blossom, and her tone was meaningful. It seemed that she also wanted to see the other party's strength. In that case, I'll embarrass myself. Oh right, the three of you can come together. Otherwise, it'll be boring. Seeing that Chu Qian had tacitly agreed to fight, Fei Ren's last bit of hesitation disappeared. He immediately turned to look at the man with the hedgehog head and his companions. At the same time, he raised his hand and hooked it. His tone was extremely calm, as if he was certain that he would win. Chapter 193. What? How arrogant! Let's attack together and take care of this brat. Hearing this, the man with the hedgehog head flew into a rage. In the next moment, he activated his Yuan power and charged towards Fei Ren with a shout. Let's finish him together. Immediately after, the other two young geniuses beside him also understood and attacked as well, blasting out waves of powerful Yuan power attacks. Rumble! In an instant, Yuan power swept out and raged. Several Yuan power ribbons streaked across the sky and landed around Fei Ren in an imposing manner. This guy is too arrogant. He actually wants to fight three people by himself. I'm afraid he'll be seriously injured even if he doesn't die. He's only at the 10th level of the Middle Unity stage. No matter how strong he is, it's impossible for him to fight against three geniuses of the same generation. Moreover, one of them is at the 2nd level of the Star Realm. The gap between the Middle Unity stage and the Star Realm is like a ravine. Let's wait and see. I'm afraid this brat is finished. Seeing the battle between Fei Ren and the hedgehog-headed man's group erupt in an instant, the spectators started discussing amongst themselves. Their expressions varied, but the majority of them were not optimistic about Fei Ren's chances. They felt that Fei Ren was being too careless. If the rumor that this guy destroyed Wang Xinqing is true, then these small fries are no match for him. Fei Ren, let this princess take a good look at your true strength. Not far away, Chu Qian's jade-like hand gently held a teacup. Then, her red lips took a sip of the tea. At the same time, a faint light flashed across her pretty face, as if she was thinking about something. Good timing. Seeing that the three people were attacking together, Fei Ren was not in a hurry. He let out a long laugh and punched forward at the same time. It was obvious that he planned to fight them head-on. What is he doing? Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. Even some body-refining martial artists would not dare to fight against the Yuan power attacks of the three people head-on with his physical body. However, Fei Ren dared to do so. Bang! Accompanied by a loud bang, countless Yuan power ribbons collapsed under the force of the punch. Then, they completely turned into nothingness. They were actually blown up by Fei Ren's punch. How is this possible? His attack was easily neutralized by Fei Ren's attack. The man with the hedgehog's head who had spoken rudely earlier was also shocked. It was as if he had seen a ghost. One punch. Facing the combined attack of three geniuses of the same generation, Fei Ren broke through it with a simple punch. Such strength had already surpassed the scope of a martial artist at the 10th level of the Middle Union realm. Even high-star realms were far inferior to him. I'll accompany you guys to warm up. Before the hedgehog-headed man and the others could recover from their shock, Fei Ren's figure slowly appeared behind one of the young geniuses. His tone was cold and indifferent. Not good. Sensing the biting cold murderous aura coming from behind him, the young genius's eyes flashed coldly. TSK. Poochie. Without giving his opponent a chance to react, Fei Ren raised his hand and heavily imprinted his palm onto the back of this young genius, instantly causing his figure to be blasted flying. At the same time, he rolled a few times in midair before finally smashing onto the ground, and he abruptly spat out a mouthful of thick blood, causing his appearance to become extremely sorry. One-hit kill. This young genius's origin power cultivation was not weak, having already reached the first level of the high-star realm. However, he was still no match for Fei Ren. And you? His figure flickered again, and Fei Ren, who was using the great art of flying heaven and earth burrowing, instantly arrived in front of another young genius like a ghost. In the next moment, he struck out with his palm again, and a powerful golden origin power instantly exploded. Similarly, this young genius was sent flying while spitting out blood, completely losing his ability to fight. In just a few breaths' time, he had defeated two people in a row. At this moment, with the terrifying strength displayed by Fei Ren, the spectators around the stone pavilion were all shocked, and for a moment, they were incomparably silent. How is this possible? Your cultivation is only at the 10th level of the Middle Union realm. Seeing his two companions being defeated in an instant, the hedgehog-headed man's mouth trembled, and his eyes were filled with fear. Who told you that my cultivation is only at the 10th level of the Middle Union realm? With a grin, Fei Ren's aura fluctuated again in the next moment, and actually surged all the way to the 3rd level of the high-star realm. Then, it slowly stopped. Obviously, he had been hiding his true cultivation before. The 3rd level of the high-star realm. Seeing Fei Ren reveal his true cultivation, the spectators' expressions changed slightly. The Fei Ren in front of them was not very old, at most 17 or 18 years old. However, his origin power cultivation was at the 3rd level of the high-star realm, which was enough to call him a genius. This princess was right. This brat is actually pretending to be weak. Looks like the person who crippled Wang Xinqing was indeed him. Seeing this scene, Chu Qian, who was sitting not far away, also had a slight change in her expression. Then, she narrowed her eyes, and her beautiful eyes seemed to turn into crescent moons. She looked like a little witch who had succeeded in her scheme. Princess, what's wrong? On the side, seeing the change in Chu Qian's expression, a young maid leaned forward and asked in a weak voice. After all, as the eldest princess in the past, Chu Qian had always silently adhered to the royal etiquette. Her demeanor was dignified, and she rarely had such a big reaction. For a moment, this young maid also thought that something had happened to her mistress. This princess is fine. You guys just watch and don't interrupt. I brought you guys here to see the world, understand? Facing the concern of her maid, Chu Qian also restrained her expression. Then, she spoke, and her tone became calm again. Yes, princess. Seeing that her mistress had spoken, the young maid naturally did not dare to say anything. She immediately silently retreated to the side, then picked up the small fan in her hand and started fanning Chu Qian. Outside the stone pavilion, seeing Fei Ren's figure gradually approaching, the hedgehog-headed man panicked. His body could not help but stagger and slide to the ground. Sir, it was a slip of the tongue just now. Just treat it as nonsense, please have mercy. Previously, he thought that Fei Ren was just a soft persimmon that could be easily bullied. Never did he expect that he would kick an iron plate in the end. At this moment, the hedgehog-headed man even had the heart to cry. How would he still dare to fight with Fei Ren? That's not what you said before. Seeing that the hedgehog-headed man had admitted defeat, Fei Ren's expression was not surprised. However, he still had no intention of stopping. 5 Mountain King capturing palm. His eyes were slightly cold. In the next moment, Fei Ren once again waved his palm and blasted out. Before the attack arrived, under the stimulation of life and death, the hedgehog-headed man's crotch became hot. Then, he actually screamed and fainted on the spot. His eyes turned white. Damn, so cowardly. Looking at the hedgehog-headed man lying on the ground like a dead fish, Fei Ren was also stunned for a moment. He immediately withdrew the origin power in his palm. Originally, he only wanted to scare the other party and make an example of him. He did not intend to kill him. However, he did not expect the other party to be so cowardly. He was a martial artist at the first level of the Star Realm, but he was so scared that he wet his pants and fainted before his attack arrived. Who can help me carry this guy away? Sensing the faint smell of urine in the air, Fei Ren pinched his nose again. Then, he looked at the people watching the battle. Chapter 194. This. Another insta-kill. The scene was dead silent and the atmosphere became stiff. The spectators were unable to react in time. In less than 3 breaths, 3 people had been insta-killed. After all, the man with the hedgehog head was a martial artist of the first level of the Star Realm. Most of the people who could come to the princess residence were the young geniuses of the major families and sections. None of them were ordinary people. However, these young geniuses were still unable to fight back against Fei Ren. The man with the hedgehog head, who had been the most aggressive, ended up the worst. Not only did he faint from fright, but he also wet his pants on the spot. It was extremely embarrassing. What are you all standing there for? Hurry up and carry this guy out. Not far away, Chu Qian frowned and shouted when she saw that everyone was frozen in place. Not only Fei Ren, but even she smelled the stench of urine in the air. It was obvious that the unconscious man with the hedgehog head was scared out of his wit. You guys, didn't you hear what the princess said? Carry him. How can such an indecent thing happen at the princess martial arts tea party? Noticing the disgust that flashed across Chu Qian's face, a young maid beside her stepped forward and pointed at a few young geniuses. She clearly understood her master's intentions. Whoosh, whoosh. The young maid's voice had barely faded when 2 disciples of the clan rushed out from the crowd. Then, they lifted the unconscious hedgehog-headed man from the ground one after another. It was as if they were carrying a fat pig waiting to be slaughtered. Then, they hurriedly carried him away from the vicinity of the stone pavilion. This fellow Lu Fang has really embarrassed himself all the way to his grandmother's house. Isn't that right? Who would have thought that the kid's origin power cultivation was at the 3rd level of the star realm? The difference between the 1st and 3rd level of the star realm is not small, but it's strange. I don't know which family or sect this kid is from. I'm familiar with all the young geniuses inside and outside the Imperial City. Why haven't I seen him before? When they saw the man with the hedgehog head being carried away, a portion of the crowd withdrew their gazes. They could not help but turn to look at Fei Ren, who had a calm expression on his face. For a moment, discussions broke out, and the atmosphere became somewhat heated, gradually reaching a climax. The man with the hedgehog head who was being carried away was named Lu Fang. He was the young master of the Lu clan, a first-rate force in the Imperial City. Although he was only the son of a concubine, his talent for cultivation was not weak. He was only 26 years old, but his origin power cultivation had already reached the 1st level of the star realm. Originally, Lu Fang wanted to show off his skills at Princess Lu Yuan's martial tea gathering and make a name for himself. Unfortunately, his luck was really bad. Not only did he kick a steel plate like Fei Ren, he was even beaten to the point of pissing his pants on the spot. It could be said to be extremely embarrassing. Moreover, most of the people present here were the young geniuses of the various factions and sects in the Imperial City. It was imaginable that after this matter was spread out, not only would Lu Fang lose all face, even the first-rate faction behind him, the Lu clan, would lose all face and become a joke. Thanks for letting me win. At this time, Fei Ren cupped his fists and said when he saw everyone's gazes shooting over. Then, he lazily sat down, as if he had just casually settled a small matter. What an exciting martial arts competition! Everyone, please continue to drink your tea. However, this Princess Martial Tea Gathering is all about martial arts and Tao discussion. You don't have to kill anyone. You just have to stop when it's appropriate. Seeing this scene, Chu Qian faintly smiled. Then, her beautiful eyes looked at Fei Ren, who was not far away, clearly hinting at something. What exactly is this girl up to? Is it really as simple as letting a group of old men come here to drink tea? Facing Chu Qian's meaningful gaze, Fei Ren was also stunned. Then, he turned his head and looked to the other side. At the same time, he picked up the fragrant tea on the stone table and drank it in one gulp. He did not know why, but he had a feeling in his heart that he seemed to have been targeted by Princess Lu Yuan, Chu Qian. As for why she was targeting him, and what her goal was, Fei Ren did not know in his heart for the time being. Forget it, who cares? I'll leave after drinking some tea thinking of this. Fei Ren also collected his thoughts. At the same time, he stretched his waist with a satisfied expression on his face. Brother, please have a taste. At this moment, a green-clothed man at the side also handed a cup of fragrant tea to Fei Ren. His eyes were filled with apprehension. It was obvious that he was intimidated by the other party's strength. It was obvious that he wanted to rope him in, and his tone was also full of respect. The green-clothed man's origin power cultivation was not weak. He had reached the 2nd level of the star realm. However, his strength was still a little weaker than Fei Ren's. After all, if it were him, he would not be able to fight 1 against 3 and kill Lu Fang, who had reached the 1st level of the star realm, in one move. Thank you. Seeing that the green-clothed man took the initiative to show his goodwill, Fei Ren also raised his hand and took the teacup. The tea was clear and soft, and a bright greenish-yellow color. It was obvious that the tea leaves and the tea water were extraordinary. It was the best choice. This tea not only has the fragrance of flowers and fruits. Moreover, the tea is fresh and mellow, and it is sweet and thick when it enters the mouth. It should be the Biluakun tea from the Azure Sun County. Fei Ren lightly sipped his tea, and in the next moment, he spoke calmly. His tone was confident, and it seemed that he had a good understanding of the way of tea. This tea is indeed from the Biluakun tea from the Azure Sun County. I didn't expect that brother not only has extraordinary strength, but also has a good understanding of the way of tea. You are truly knowledgeable. I admire you. Seeing that Fei Ren was able to analyze the origin of the tea leaves with just one taste, the green-clothed man was also shocked. Then, he repeatedly sighed with emotion. I wouldn't dare to say that I am knowledgeable. I only know a little. Grinning, Fei Ren was very humble in the face of the green-clothed man's praise. I am Song Sherluan from the capital's Song family. May I know your name, brother? The green-clothed man cupped his hands again and said respectfully, You are from the Song family? Hearing this, Fei Ren's tone was surprised. Song Yuan, who was beaten up by him in the Alchemist Guild's Pill Tower, seemed to be from the Song family. Brother, what's wrong? Seeing the slight change in Fei Ren's expression, the green-clothed man named Song Sherluan was also stunned for a moment before speaking. It's nothing. My name is Fei Ren. Chuckling, Fei Ren immediately waved his hand and said. Everyone present was from the younger generation of the various major forces. Although Song Sherluan and Song Yuan were both from the Song family, he did not reject Song Sherluan's flattery. After all, having one more friend was equivalent to having one less enemy. The martial tea gathering was still going on. As the host, Chu Qian was constantly instructing her servants and maids to continuously bring out pots of good tea. Some young geniuses were unable to hold themselves back and chose to go up on stage to compete. Obviously, they were planning to show off their strength in front of Chu Qian. Among the people present, the weakest cultivation was at the 10th level of the Middle Union realm. Most of them were at the 1st or 2nd level of the Star realm. As for the strongest cultivation, it was a young genius from the pavilion of Prince Ting, a 9th-rank sect. His name was Qing Li. Qing Li was an elite disciple of the pavilion of Prince Ting. Not only did he fight 3 rounds in a row, but he also won all 3 rounds easily. There were many geniuses of the same generation who were at the 2nd level of the Star realm. His strength did not seem to be weaker than Fei Ren's at all. For a moment, he was the focus of most of the people present and was in the limelight. At the corner of the stone pavilion. Fei Ren, I didn't expect this guy to become stronger again. If father can't deal with him, he will definitely be a huge threat to the Long family in the future. Long Jingqiu was silently drinking his tea. He was clearly not interested in the competition in the field. A sinister look appeared on his pale face. Although Fei Ren did not notice his presence, he could not remain calm. Because of the matter with Nie Feng, he and Fei Ren had become mortal enemies. If they fought, they would not stop until one of them was dead. Long Jingqiu was very clear about this. Last time, he had used the dragon shadow escape and luckily escaped from Fei Ren. However, now that Fei Ren's strength had increased greatly, it would not be easy for him to escape again. Chapter 195. No, if I stay here, he'll find out sooner or later. I'm no match for him. Long Jingqiu's face was filled with bewilderment. In the next moment, he clenched his fists as if he had made up his mind to flee. Brother Long, what's wrong? A young genius from another family asked when he saw Long Jingqiu's gloomy face. This young genius was skinny, and his face was long and slender like a horse's face. He was wearing a light yellow robe, and although he wasn't handsome, his cultivation base wasn't weak either. He had already reached the 1st level of the Star Realm, and he seemed to be a good friend of Long Jingqiu. Nothing, Brother Nie, I still have some matters to attend to and will take my leave first. Please help me pass a message to the princess. Long Jingqiu withdrew his expression in the face of the yellow-robed young man's probing. After which, he opened his mouth and spoke. In the next moment, he turned around and hurriedly left. Clearly, he did not wish to stay any longer in the princess residence. Why did that guy look like he had seen a ghost? Seeing Long Jingcho's figure disappear in the blink of an eye, the yellow-robed young man shook his head with a confused expression. Long Jingcho's abnormal behavior had surprised him. "Forget it, who cares? It has nothing to do with me anyway." The yellow-robed young man took a few sips of tea and ignored Long Jingcho, who had left in a hurry. The yellow-robed young man was called Nye Qingfeng, and he was a young disciple from the Nye family, a first-rate power in the imperial city. He was talented and slightly stronger than Nye Feng, who had died at the hands of Fei Ren. He was also one of Long Jingcho's good friends. However, Nye Qingfeng hadn't interacted with Fei Ren before, so he didn't know how strong Fei Ren was. Otherwise, he would understand why Long Jingcho had left quietly and didn't dare to stay in the princess's residence any longer. The martial arts competition was still going on around the stone pavilion, and the atmosphere was intense. Bang! A loud explosion sounded, and in the next moment, a young genius was sent flying and rolled on the ground. At the same time, he spat out a mouthful of thick blood. He had clearly lost the ability to fight and was in a sorry state. "You're no match for me. Surrender." Cheng-Li stomped on the ground and arrived in front of the young genius. His expression was firm and emotionless as he spoke coldly. "I admit defeat." Clenching his teeth, the young genius was completely discouraged as he looked at Cheng-Li, who was like a towering mountain that couldn't be shaken. He immediately lowered his head powerlessly. Obviously, he knew that he couldn't compete with his opponent, and continuing to fight would be a useless struggle. Is this the difference between a sect disciple and a secular martial artist? Clenching his fists, the young genius felt indignant and his face turned livid. His name was Wang Shuang. Not only did he come from the Wang clan, a first-rate force in the capital, but his origin energy cultivation had also reached the second level of the star realm. However, he was still no match for Cheng-Li. Cheng-Li's origin energy cultivation had already reached the fourth level of the star realm, and his strength was astonishing. He was far stronger than his peers. This Cheng-Li guy is really abnormal. Even Wang Shuang was defeated. This is the fourth one, right? He has already won 4 matches in a row. No wonder he's the top genius of the Pavilion of Prince Ting from the 9th ranks of the great families. His strength is so terrifying. Even if he's in the World Hero competition, he can still make it into the top 10. After Wang Shuang was defeated, he also returned to his seat with a sullen look on his face. On the other hand, the young geniuses who were watching the battle were in an uproar. Suddenly, there was a lot of discussion and sighing. Obviously, they were all shocked by Cheng-Li's strength. Outside the stone pavilion, in a corner, "Brother Fei, what do you think of Cheng-Li?" Looking at the majestic Cheng-Li across from him, Song Sherluan sipped a few cups of tea to calm himself down. Then, he asked Fei Ren in a surprised tone. Among the people present, except for the host, Princess Lu Yuan Chu Qian, whose strength was unknown, Cheng-Li's cultivation was the strongest. He had reached the 4th level of the Star Realm. Moreover, he was from the Pavilion of Prince Ting from the 9th ranks of the great families. His combat strength was far stronger than ordinary martial artists of the same level. He could be considered a formidable opponent. His strength is average, but compared to the young geniuses present, he's not bad. Facing Song Sherluan's probing, Fei Ren's expression was still calm. It seemed that he didn't think much of Cheng-Li's performance. This Brother Fei is indeed a person with a big heart. Seeing Fei Ren's reaction, Song Sherluan was also very surprised. He originally thought that Fei Ren would give him a very high evaluation. He didn't expect that the powerful Cheng-Li was only average in Fei Ren's eyes. This made it difficult for him to remain calm. "Brother Fei, do you want to fight?" Swallowing his saliva, Song Sherluan probed again. From his point of view, perhaps only Fei Ren was able to fight with Cheng-Li from the 9th rank sect, Pavilion of Prince Ting. The others simply did not have any chance of victory in a one-on-one duel. No, I'm only here to drink tea today. Shaking his head, Fei Ren took another sip of tea. His tone was indifferent. Although Qing Li's strength was not bad, he was not his opponent. He was only about the same as Wang Xinqing. With his current strength, fighting Qing Li was equivalent to an adult bullying a defenseless child. There was no point in fighting such a battle, and it was very boring. This. Song Sherluan was stunned. He was clearly surprised by Fei Ren's answer. TSK, a third-level Star Realm cultivator against a fourth-level Star Realm cultivator. I wonder if Qing Li is stronger, or if Brother Fei will have the last laugh. Although Fei Ren didn't have any intention of fighting, Song Sherluan didn't think so. He immediately sighed and secretly praised himself in his heart. On the other side of the stone pavilion. Princess, this guy called Qing Li seems to be quite strong. Moreover, he has already won 4 matches in a row. The young geniuses of the great families don't seem to dare to fight against this guy. Seeing that Chu Qian was still sitting at the side, slowly brewing tea with her jade-like hands, as if she had no interest in the intense battle in the field, one of the young maids couldn't help but speak with a sigh. Although this person's strength is not bad, he is still not worthy of this princess's attention. Compared to him, this princess is more interested in seeing Fei Ren's strength. This princess has a feeling in her heart that this guy must have been hiding his strength earlier. Little Cui, your eyesight still needs to be improved. Glancing at the young maid beside her, Chu Qian spoke in a gentle tone. Her beautiful eyes were still calm and composed. Clearly, she felt that the other party was making a fuss over nothing. Yes, faced with her master's warning, the young maid called Little Cui's pretty face turned slightly red. Then, she stuck out her tongue and silently retreated to the side, no longer speaking. Chapter 196. Wang Xinqing is one of Uncle Lu Ming's capable subordinates. He's quite powerful, and his cultivation has reached the 5th level of the Star Realm. Since this Fei Ren fellow can cripple Wang Xinqing, then his strength must be above him. If this princess can rope him in, I'm sure father will be very happy. Chu Qian's gaze wandered as she looked at Fei Ren, who was calmly drinking tea not far away. A trace of contemplation flashed across her egg-shaped face, as if she was scheming in her heart. Unlike the other princes and princesses, as Chu Tianyang's most beloved daughter, Chu Qian didn't only know how to enjoy glory and wealth and didn't care about the matters of the imperial court. On the contrary, she wanted to share some of Chu Tianyang's pressure. Although Chu Tianyang was the current emperor of the Dachu dynasty, some discerning people inside and outside the imperial court could see that Chu Tianyang's throne wasn't as stable as Mount Tai. The current Prince Jin, Chu Wen, was one of his greatest threats, and Chu Qian was very clear about this. However, the Chu clan was the royal family, and naturally had the royal family's rules and ancestral teachings. A prince was a prince, after all, and couldn't be disobeyed. Although Chu Wen and Chu Tianyang had more and more conflicts, both sides were still as harmonious as before in the imperial court. As a prince who controlled a large number of troops, Chu Wen still didn't dare to be presumptuous in front of the emperor, Chu Tianyang, and always abided by his duties as a prince. However, the tree may want to remain calm, but the wind won't stop. As Chu Wen's foundation grew stronger and stronger, the number of capable soldiers under his command increased. The current emperor, Chu Tianyang, also gradually felt a trace of threat. He also secretly roped in martial experts from various places, trying to strangle Chu Wen's ambitions in the cradle. Although both sides didn't directly shed all pretense of cordiality, they constantly clashed in the dark. Therefore, Chu Qian had the idea of roping in martial experts for Chu Tianyang. As for the martial tea gathering, it was also considered. After all, those who came here were the peak geniuses of various clans and sections. However, what made Chu Qian disappointed was that apart from Qing Li and Fei Ren, who had some strength, everyone else was mediocre. Their strength couldn't be considered elegant. Moreover, Chengli was a young genius from the pavilion of Prince Ting from the 9 ranks of the great families, so he was basically excluded. As everyone knew, the Dacha dynasty had 3 9 ranks of the great families. Pavilion of Prince Ting was one of them. Although the 3 9 ranks of the great families chose to submit to the royal family on the surface, the emperor, Chu Tianyong, may not even be able to order people from the clan of the clans. This was because when the Dachu dynasty was founded, the Chu clan relied on the strength of these 9 ranks of the great families to sweep away the heroes and ascend to the throne. The ancestors of the Chu clan also promised that the royal family and the imperial court would not interfere in the affairs of the 3 9 ranks of the great families. Therefore, the probability of Chu Qian wanting to rope in Qingli to work for the imperial court was very low. Moreover, the 9 ranks of the great families behind him would not agree. Even the Lingjian school, which had the best relationship with the imperial court, was only harmonious on the surface. It was impossible to make him work for the imperial court. Royal uncle's ambition is getting bigger and bigger. I hope royal father is prepared. Thinking of this, Chu Qian also withdrew her gaze. Then, she rubbed her forehead with her jade-like hand and her pretty face was solemn. On the other side, around the stone pavilion. Damn it! What does this brat do? He only defeated a few pieces of trash, but he actually got Princess Lu Yuan's attention. After defeating Wang Shuang, Chengli was in high spirits. At this moment, he was standing on the spot with his arms crossed. However, when he saw Chu Qian's gaze on Fei Ren, his face suddenly changed, and his expression immediately turned ugly. Pretentious brat, watch how I'll deal with you today. After snorting coldly, Chengli also withdrew his thoughts in the next moment. Then, he slowly walked toward Fei Ren's direction. The aura around his body was shocking, as if he was in the Azura purgatory. It also made the surrounding young geniuses shudder. Brother Fei, Chengli is coming. At this moment, seeing Chengli slowly walking toward him, Song Sherluan, who was next to Fei Ren, also changed his expression slightly. Then, he hurriedly said in a somewhat panicked tone. After all, his origin power cultivation was only at the 2nd level of the star realm, which was similar to Wang Shuang's. Moreover, his actual combat strength was even weaker than Wang Shuang's. He was definitely not Chengli's match. If he went up and fought with Chengli, he would be asking for trouble. However, what shocked Song Sherluan was that Fei Ren was still drinking tea and did not notice the murderous Chengli walking toward him. Your Excellency's strength is extraordinary. Why don't you come up and show me your skills? Are you afraid? Looking coldly at Fei Ren, Cheng-Li's lips curled up, and then he provoked him. This tea is not bad. It seems to be high-quality tea Guanyin. Brother Song, why don't you try it? Ignoring the aggressive Cheng-Li, Fei Ren smiled faintly, then raised the teacup in his hand and handed it to Song Sherluan, who was next to him. Seeing this scene, Song Sherluan's face was blank. He seemed to be unable to react to Fei Ren's actions. Bastard! You dare to ignore me! Seeing that Fei Ren was still calmly drinking tea, as if he didn't put him in his eyes, Cheng-Li couldn't hold back the anger in his heart. He suddenly flew into a rage, and at the same time, raised his hand and swept the teacup in Fei Ren's hand to the side. Crack! Accompanied by the crisp sound of porcelain shattering, the teacup in Fei Ren's hand also completely shattered, turning into a pile of fragments. At the same time, the tea splashed everywhere. Silence. The atmosphere was as silent as stagnant water. Suddenly, there was complete silence. Countless shocked gazes looked at Cheng-Li and Fei Ren in the field, as if they were waiting to see how the situation would develop next. Kneel down and slap yourself 20 times. Apologize, and I can consider letting bygones be bygones. After a long silence, Fei Ren finally spoke slowly. At the same time, he raised his eyes to look at Cheng-Li. His cold and emotionless eyes were like an extremely cold ice cave, causing people to shudder. Who do you think you are? Brat, you only defeated a few pieces of trash. What are you being arrogant for? Looking at Fei Ren's cold and emotionless eyes, Qing Li's body trembled, and his mind trembled. However, in the next moment, it was replaced by boundless anger. The veins on his forehead bulged, and at the same time, his face was filled with anger as he shouted. As an elite disciple of the 9 ranks of the great families, his strength and status were illustrious. However, he was actually threatened by a 3rd-level Star Realm rogue cultivator in front of everyone. If he was not in the princess's residence, Qing Li would have killed Fei Ren to vent the anger in his heart. Since you keep calling me trash, if I were to kill you, wouldn't you be worse than trash? With a chuckle, Fei Ren immediately stood up slowly. His tone was mocking, and a trace of killing intent appeared on his handsome face. Chapter 197. Go to hell! Qing Li roared furiously. He could no longer suppress the anger in his heart. He raised his hand and punched toward Fei Ren's face. Swoosh! The force of the punch pierced through the air. The power of this punch was enough to severely injure any martial artist below the 3rd level of the Star Realm. It was obvious that Qing Li was determined to kill Fei Ren. Bang! A loud sound rang out. Qing Li's fist was forcefully stopped in midair, unable to move an inch forward. Fei Ren's left hand formed a palm with origin power surging in his palm. It seemed as if he had effortlessly stopped Qing Li's attack. At this moment, his expression was calm and indifferent. If you want to fight, I can play with you. Fei Ren's eyes were cold and emotionless. Since Qing Li wanted to kill him, he naturally wouldn't show any mercy. Ever since he stepped onto the path of martial arts, he had faced countless enemies and fallen into countless dangerous situations. However, every single person who wanted to take his life died in the end, becoming nameless corpses that he trampled under his feet. Qing Li was naturally no exception. His opponent was merely an elite disciple of the 9 ranks of the great families. His strength was only comparable to Wang Xinqing's. It was simply impossible for him to kill Fei Ren. How can this be? After his fist was blocked, Qing Li felt an incomparably huge force coming from Fei Ren's palm. At this moment, Qing Li's face turned red, and his expression was one of disbelief. One had to know that his origin power cultivation was at the 4th level of the Star Realm, while Fei Ren was only at the 3rd level of the Star Realm. Qing Li naturally couldn't remain calm when his all-out punch was easily stopped by Fei Ren despite the fact that Fei Ren was 1 level higher than him. They're actually fighting. The battle was on the verge of breaking out in a flash. Even the young geniuses around the stone pavilion didn't expect the intense confrontation between Qing Li and Fei Ren. Princess, look. The two of them are about to fight. At this moment, a young maid beside Chu Qian exclaimed in shock. After all, among the numerous young geniuses present, only Qing Li and Fei Ren were the strongest. If these two people were to fight, it would inevitably attract the attention of everyone. After all, one of them was a powerful and mysterious loose cultivator genius, while the other was a noble disciple of the 9 ranks of the great families. Both of them were not ordinary people. Princess, from what I see, that Qing Li is very angry. Could it be that he's going to kill that brat? I heard that he's just a rogue cultivator, should we? Seeing that Chu Qian did not have any reaction, the young female servant weakly spoke. Her tone was probing. Xiao Chui, do you think Fei Ren will lose? After a few breaths of silence, the corners of Chu Qian's mouth finally curled up slightly. Then, she opened her mouth and a playful expression appeared on her pretty face. It was as if her thoughts were different from the young maidservant named Xiao Chui. Well, in the face of her master's question, Xiao Chui was also stunned for a moment. She seemed to be thinking of how to answer. However, in the next moment, Chu Qian's gentle voice sounded again. Don't worry too much. Although the elite disciples of the 9 ranks of the great families are powerful, that fellow called Fei Ren is not as simple as you think, yes. Hearing this, Xiao Chui did not say anything. Since her master did not want to interfere, and wanted to watch the fire burn across the river, as a servant, she naturally did not dare to say anything. Although Chu Qian usually doted on her the most, once she angered her mistress, her ending would be very tragic. The rules of the princess's residence had always been very strict. There was a clear hierarchy. Even the most favored servant could not be arrogant because of the favor. Let go. Around the stone pavilion, looking at the shocked gazes of the surrounding people, Chengli also roared in the next moment. At the same time, the yuan power in his body swept out, as if he wanted to break free from the restraint of Fei Ren's palm. The veins on his forehead could not help but bulge. As you wish. With a cold snort, Fei Ren also circulated the yuan power in his body. At the same time, he lifted his leg and kicked towards Qing Li's dantian in his abdomen, causing a gust of wind to whistle. Bang! Boom! The fist and leg collided, creating a deafening sound. In the next moment, Qing Li's figure was also sent flying by Fei Ren's kick. As if he could not withstand the huge impact, his whole body retreated dozens of steps before he could stabilize his body. His face was in a sorry state. So strong! Who exactly is this person? Even Qing Li was defeated. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the crowd changed slightly. In a short confrontation, Fei Ren, who was at a disadvantage in terms of yuan power cultivation, actually had the upper hand. How could this not cause the crowd to be extremely shocked? You. Who exactly are you? There is no one like you among the younger generation inside and outside the imperial city. Feeling the waves of intense pain from his fist and the web between his thumb and index finger, Qing Li's face was gloomy and ugly. He could not help but raise his head to look at Fei Ren again, his voice full of disbelief. Although the exchange with Fei Ren was very short, Qing Li also understood that his opponent's strength had already exceeded his imagination. In order to block Fei Ren's kick, not only did he circulate all his yuan power, but he also felt as if the bones in his entire arm were about to be shattered. For a moment, he was in incomparable pain. Who I am is not important. You only need to understand that there is a price to pay for acting tough. In the face of Qing Li's questioning, Fei Ren only grinned. Then, his figure flickered and actually appeared in front of Qing Li. Originally, he only wanted to quietly drink tea and did not want to make a move. However, there were always some ignorant people who wanted to find trouble with him. Since this was the case, Fei Ren did not mind making an example out of them. He wanted to let these so-called young geniuses of the imperial city know that some people were destined to be untouchable. Bastard! Go to hell! At such a close distance, Qing Li felt the powerful aura on Fei Ren's body. At this moment, Qing Li was furious and directly punched out. Boundless yuan power transformed into dozens of fist force streams at the same time, as if he was unwilling to sit still and wait for death. The struggle of an ant. In the face of Qing Li's powerful counterattack, Fei Ren also faced it head-on with his palm. Instantly, yuan power swept out and raged, transforming into an incomparably powerful yuan power giant palm with overlapping mountain ranges within it. Bang! Poochie! Accompanied by a deafening roar, the yuan power giant palm instantly shattered the fist force streams, and then ruthlessly landed on Qing Li's body. Golden yuan power swept out and raged, and also fiercely blasted Qing Li's body back. He fell to the ground like a broken sack, and at the same time, spat out a mouthful of blood. You! I am a disciple of the pavilion of Prince Ting of the 9th ranks of the great families. You actually dare to attack me? The pavilion of Prince Ting will definitely not let you off. Qing Li struggled to get up from the ground. At this moment, he had already lost his previous imposing manner, and his eyes were filled with madness and resentment as he looked at Fei Ren. Not only had he suffered a crushing defeat in this martial tea gathering, but he had also lost face in front of Princess Lu Yuan and many of the younger generation in the imperial city. As an elite disciple of the 9th ranks of the great families, Cheng Li was naturally unwilling to be humiliated, and all of this was because of Fei Ren before him. Bastard kid! As he thought of this, the hatred and anger in Cheng Li's heart rose by another 30%. In his heart, he had already made up his mind. This time, when he returned to the sect, he would definitely ask his master to take action and make Fei Ren suffer the consequences. Are you done with your nonsense? However, what made Cheng Li unable to believe was that Fei Ren didn't seem to care about his threat and the pavilion of Prince Ting of the 9th ranks of the great families. Instead, Fei Ren leaped and once again landed in front of him. If you're done, then scram. Fei Ren coldly glanced at Cheng Li, and in the next moment, he also raised his hand and threw out a slap. You. Before he finished speaking, Cheng Li felt half of his face being ruthlessly slapped, and his entire body was actually sent flying on the spot. In the end, he rolled a few times before slowly coming to a stop. At this moment, his mouth was filled with unclear blood and broken teeth, and half of his face was swollen like a pig's head. Chapter 198. Looks like you're worse than trash. You can't even take a single hit from me. Have you wasted all your cultivation on a dog? After sending Cheng Li flying with a slap, Fei Ren raised his head and flicked the dust off his clothes as he said indifferently. Although Cheng Li was from the pavilion of Prince Ting, one of the 9 ranks of the great families, his cultivation was only at the 4th level of the Star Realm. His strength was about the same as the 3rd commander of the Steel Corps, Wang Xinqing. Although he was considered pretty good among the young geniuses, he paled in comparison to Fei Ren. With Fei Ren's current strength, he could easily defeat or even kill an ordinary martial artist at the 7th level of the Star Realm. Only veteran martial artists at the 8th level of the Star Realm and above could make him feel threatened and challenged. For example, the current commander of the Steel Corps, Lu Ming. You! Cheng Li was enraged by Fei Ren's mockery. He immediately spat out a large mouthful of blood. Then, his eyes lost focus and he fell to the ground again. His head tilted to the side. It was obvious that he had fainted from anger. Cheng Li had lost. Seeing Cheng Li spit out blood and fall to the ground, the spectators at the side of the stone pavilion looked at each other with shocked expressions. Cheng Li, an elite disciple of the pavilion of Prince Ting, one of the 9 ranks of the great families, whose cultivation had reached the 4th level of the Star Realm, had been easily defeated by a nameless rogue cultivator. Moreover, his opponent's cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the Star Realm. He didn't have an advantage in terms of cultivation base. This person is a monster. I heard that his name is Fei Ren. He's not from the Imperial City. I wonder which county he's from. Even Cheng Li wasn't his opponent. However, the pavilion master of the pavilion of Prince Ting is the current Medicine King, Lin Feng. With Medicine King Lin Feng's prestige, this brat still dared to be so ruthless and heavily injured Cheng Li, an elite disciple. Medicine King Lin Feng won't let this go, right? Looking at Fei Ren, who was quietly standing not too far away with an imposing aura, as well as Cheng Li, who was lying unconscious on the ground, the spectators started to discuss with different expressions. Fei Ren had already become the focal point of this martial tea gathering, and his reputation was greatly shaken. This guy's strength is indeed not bad. Even Cheng Li was not his opponent. On the other side, Chu Qian's beautiful eyes flickered as she looked at Fei Ren, who was in the limelight. Her beautiful face involuntarily revealed a trace of contemplation. No one knew what she was thinking in her heart at this moment. One has no choice in the martial world. When he sensed the gazes directed at him from the surroundings, Fei Ren softly sighed. Originally, he did not want to be high profile. However, there were too many people who actively sought death. Towards someone like Ching Li who wanted to be beaten up, he naturally had to satisfy the other party's special request. Brother Fei, you defeated Ching Li? Song Shiluan's eyes were wide open as he looked at the calm Fei Ren in shock. It was as if his eyeballs were about to pop out. Yeah, it was just a small matter. Fei Ren lifted his hand and drank a cup of tea. He pursed his lips and spoke softly. It wasn't that he liked to show off. Although Ching Li was an elite disciple of the 9 ranks of the great families, he wasn't the strongest. Compared to the young geniuses in the World Hero competition, he wasn't even worth mentioning. Every World Hero competition had young geniuses and sect disciples from all over the Dachu dynasty. It could be said that experts were as common as clouds, and there was no lack of top prodigies above the 7th level of the Star Realm. Compared to these people, the young geniuses of the Imperial City that were participating in the martial tea gathering this time were undoubtedly inferior by a level. After all, the World Summit of Elites represented the top combat strengths of the younger generation of the Dachu dynasty, and the young geniuses that were able to make a name for themselves at the martial tea gathering would at least become lords of an area in the future. Brother Fei, your strength has really opened my eyes. Please allow me to toast you again. Song Shiluan was also stunned by Fei Ren's calmness. Then, he calmed himself down and raised the teacup in his hand. At this moment, he couldn't help but feel lucky that he had tried to curry favor with Fei Ren. As a disciple of the Song family, one of the top forces in the Imperial City, Song Shiluan clearly knew the benefits of being on good terms with a top genius like Fei Ren. With Fei Ren's strength, he would definitely become famous throughout the Dachu dynasty in the future. Therefore, if he was on good terms with Fei Ren, it would also greatly benefit his family. Song Shiluan was very clear about this. I appreciate Brother Song's kindness, but I've drunk quite a bit of this tea. It's time for me to leave. However, to Song Shiluan's surprise, Fei Ren didn't accept the cup of tea. Instead, he shook his head and turned around to leave. Brother Fei. Before Song Shiluan could finish his words, Fei Ren's figure flashed and directly ran out of the courtyard. It seemed like he didn't plan to stay any longer. Fei Ren, stop right there. At this moment, it wasn't just Song Shiluan. Seeing that Fei Ren was planning to escape, Chu Qian, who wasn't far away, was also slightly stunned. Then, without caring about her image and etiquette, she also jumped up and stopped Fei Ren, who was about to leave. Princess, why are you stopping me? Looking at Chu Qian, who frowned slightly and was a little angry, Fei Ren was immediately stunned. Then, he couldn't help but laugh. This girl is indeed a great beauty. Although everyone said that Princess Lu Yuan, Chu Qian, was as beautiful as a fairy, there were very few people who had seen it with their own eyes. Even Fei Ren was no exception. Princess. At this moment, the 2 young maids beside her also hurried over. Their faces were panicked, as if they were frightened by Chu Qian's swift and decisive action. Fei Ren, why are you running away? Ignoring the concern of her maids, Chu Qian stared at Fei Ren with her beautiful eyes that were as big as silver bells. Running away? Hearing this, Fei Ren was a little confused. That's right. Without my permission, anyone who leaves the martial arts tea gathering without my permission is considered to be running away. According to the rules of the princess residence, they will be beaten. However, looking at your strength and skills, and with the protection of origin energy, I reckon that ordinary beatings won't be able to hurt you, unless it's a martial artist. With a sly smile, Chu Qian also put her hands on her hip. The arrogant princess temperament was completely revealed. Obviously, she was also pampered, and there was no lack of domineering in her tone. Princess, what do you mean? I don't understand. Seeing this scene, Fei Ren's face also froze, and then gradually became serious. Although he knew that this martial arts tea gathering was not simple, he never thought that the other party would really target him, and it seemed to have been planned for a long time. It's very simple. I have taken a fancy to your strength. If you follow me, there will be many benefits, and the royal family just happens to need a young genius like you. How about it? Fei Ren, are you willing to do it? Grinning again, Chu Qian opened her mouth and said. She did not have the slightest bit of the cold temperament from before, and in front of him was the attitude of a spoiled young girl. Princess, didn't you usually teach us to pay more attention to words and etiquette? Why today, seeing that Chu Qian's nature was exposed, the young maid beside her also hurriedly said, as if hinting Chu Qian to pay more attention to the royal family's etiquette in public. Shut up. What do you want to do with me? Really, shut up, shut up. Facing the reminder, Chu Qian's pretty face was also slightly dissatisfied. Then, she glared angrily and scolded, causing the two young maids to tremble, and immediately nodded and left. Chapter 199. Princess, I'm just a rogue cultivator. There are many experts under the imperial court and the royal family, so they shouldn't need me, right? Hearing this, Fei Ren immediately understood the other party's thoughts and smiled bitterly, his tone tactful. Although serving the royal family was the dream of many warriors in the Dacha dynasty, Fei Ren did not think so. Firstly, he was used to being carefree, and secondly, the internal struggle of the royal family was equally intense. He did not want to be involved in this struggle and be used as a tool by others. Perhaps Chu Qian did not know about Prince Jin's ambitions, but Fei Ren's heart was as clear as a mirror. Back then, Chu Wen's subordinate, Xiahou Ba, also wanted to rope him in, and even planted a deadly goo. If not for the immortal refining cauldron in his body, he would be a chess piece in someone else's hands, and it would be difficult for him to escape. You mean to refuse? Just as she finished speaking, facing Fei Ren's tactful refusal, Chu Qian's beautiful face was slightly stunned, as if she was somewhat surprised. Yes, forgive me for being unable to comply. Nodding his head, Fei Ren's expression was helpless. In the future, he would definitely leave the Dacha dynasty and head to a wider world. At the same time, he would search for the mystery of his life. Naturally, he would not stay in a remote place like the Dacha dynasty for long. Fei Ren, do you know that not everyone can work for the royal family? If you nod your head and agree now, this princess can ask my father to give you a position in the royal family. As if she was unwilling, Chu Qian frowned and pursed her lip. Sorry, princess. Unwilling to say more, Fei Ren cupped his hands again, as if he had already made up his mind. You Fei Ren, you actually don't know what's good for you. At this point, Chu Qian's beautiful face was also slightly angry. At the same time, she raised her jade-like hand and pointed at the other party. She glared at him, as if she was somewhat angered by Fei Ren. After all, the great Chu imperial family was different from the imperial court. Those that could become a consecrator of the imperial family were all people with great strength. They enjoyed the authority and salary that many dukes did not have. Some of the consecrators even had a higher status than some princes, such as Lu Ming from before. As the commander of the Steel Corps, Lu Ming might have an official position in the imperial court, but he wasn't under anyone's jurisdiction and only listened to Emperor Chu Tianyong. At the same time, he enjoyed a large amount of salary from the royal family, which was one of the benefits of being a consecrator of the royal family. Therefore, Chu Qian never expected that the other party would reject her offer in such a straightforward manner, even though she had already offered such a huge benefit. Moreover, as the eldest princess, not only did she have a noble status, her strength and talent were also not weak. She had always been doted on by everyone. Today, she had lowered her status to rope in Fei Ren, but the other party still rejected her. This made Chu Qian feel a little embarrassed. "Princess, are you all right?" Seeing that the atmosphere was a little awkward and both sides were in a deadlock, the two young maids at the side also came forward and asked in a weak tone. It could be seen that the two of them were a little flustered, as if they rarely saw Chu Qian lose her composure like this. "Princess, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first." Seeing Chu Qian lose her composure in front of him, Fei Ren also coughed dryly, then flashed and left. If it wasn't a last resort, he didn't want to have any relationship with Chu Qian. After all, there were so many pairs of eyes watching him. Moreover, Princess Lu Yuan Chu Qian could be said to be a peerless beauty inside and outside the imperial city. Who knew how many young elites and disciples of aristocratic families had fallen in love with her? Fei Ren was very clear in his heart that if he were to get too close to her, there would definitely be a lot of trouble. After all, since ancient times, femme fatale wasn't a baseless rumor. Even in the ancient times, there were some powerful experts in the Black Star continent who failed miserably and fell under the skirt of a pomegranate, not to mention that Fei Ren was only a little trash at the third level of the star realm. "Fei Ren, stop right there." Seeing that Fei Ren was about to leave again, Chu Qian was flustered and exasperated. She immediately stepped forward and wanted to pull him back. "Princess, there are too many people here. Men and women shouldn't touch each other." Fei Ren's voice faintly sounded in her ears. In the next moment, Chu Qian was also stunned. The jade-like hand that she had just stretched out suddenly withdrew, and a faint blush appeared on her beautiful face. "Stinking brat, if you dare to leave, I'll ask father to order the whole world to arrest you tomorrow." Chu Qian lightly bit her lips and lightly snorted again. It seemed that she didn't intend to let Fei Ren leave so easily. "Princess, I'm just a good citizen. I can't withstand your torment. Please let me go." In the face of Chu Qian's threat, Fei Ren also sighed at this moment. Then, he had no choice but to stop. There was a faint helplessness on his face. After all, the influence of an arrest warrant was huge. The other party was the princess of the imperial family. Once a high bounty was offered, there would definitely be a large number of bounty hunters and martial artists who would come looking for trouble. Moreover, there would be no end to it. Even Fei Ren couldn't handle it. "Hee, you don't dare to run this time, right? This princess can't deal with you. Now you only have two choices. The first is to obediently follow this princess. The second is to become a wanted criminal and be hunted down by the martial artists of the entire Dachu dynasty. Fei Ren, you choose yourself." Seeing that Fei Ren had admitted defeat, Chu Qian also faintly smiled. Her red lips slightly curled up, and her eyebrows were filled with pride. "Cough cough, is there a third choice? In your dreams?" Fei Ren dryly coughed. Before he finished speaking, Chu Qian widened her eyes again and lightly shouted. "What ability does this brat have to be able to make the princess intercept him? Do you think the princess has fallen for this brat? It's hard to say. After all, this Fei Ren had just defeated Qing Li from the 9th ranks of the great families. It can be said that his strength is formidable. Don't talk nonsense. Throughout history, there have been countless disciples from the great families and sects who have proposed marriage to the royal family. None of them are ordinary people. Although this brat has strength, he is only a rogue cultivator. How can a toad be able to hook up with a golden phoenix?" Seeing that Chu Qian and Fei Ren were echoing each other and were in a deadlock, the onlookers not far away were also shocked. They looked at each other and for a moment, there were endless discussions. After all, there were very few people who could make Chu Qian personally take action, let alone a mere rogue cultivator like Fei Ren. "Damn! Is this girl pestering me? If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have come." Looking at Chu Qian's stubborn appearance that seemed to not give up until she achieved her goal, Fei Ren also secretly thought in his heart and suddenly felt a headache. "Hurry up and say it. This princess is very busy. I don't have time to waste here with you. Fei Ren, as a man, why are you being so wishy-washy? Seemingly a little impatient, seeing that Fei Ren did not speak for a long time, Chu Qian frowned again and said, now that everyone's gazes were gathered here, she did not want this matter to spread out to avoid new problems. After all, she still represented the dignity and image of the great Chu royal family. It was inevitable that she would be criticized if she was entangled with a rogue cultivator. Chapter 200. Princess, if you insist on making me a consecrator of the royal family, then I only have one condition. Seeing that Chu Qian was unwilling to let him go, Fei Ren immediately understood that if he did not lower his head, the other party would not let him leave. Speak, what condition? Seeing that Fei Ren had finally relented, Chu Qian immediately opened her eyes wide with a look of concentration. As the princess of the imperial family, she had seen many young geniuses. However, it was rare to see someone like Fei Ren, who was a rogue cultivator, with such great talent and strength that even the elite disciples of ninth-rank sects could not compare to him. Therefore, Chu Qian was even more determined to rope him in. Right now, Fei Ren's cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the star realm, and his strength was already so strong. In the future, when he grew up, he would definitely become a great help to the royal family. Just like the commander of the Steel Corps, Lu Ming, it was not impossible for him to become Emperor Chu Tianyang's right-hand man. Thus, Chu Qian naturally would not let Fei Ren leave so easily. She did not even hesitate to throw away her princess image and royal etiquette to stop Fei Ren in front of everyone. Very simple, Fei Ren grinned and gently extended a finger. He first pointed at Chu Qian, who was opposite him, and then pointed at himself. As long as your highness can defeat me, I will willingly become a consecrator of the royal family and work for the emperor. Furthermore, I will do as I say. Defeat you? Hearing this, Chu Qian was stunned for a moment. Her pretty face was slightly suspicious, as if she was a little surprised. Yes, if I lose, everything will be at your highness's disposal. If I win in the end, I hope your highness will not stop me from leaving. Nodding his head, Fei Ren also said with a serious expression and a sincere tone. In the world of martial artists, strength was respected. Right now, he was in the princess manor, and there were many experts in the royal family. If he were to go against Chu Qian's wishes, it would be difficult for him to forcefully leave the manor. He would definitely be chased by a large group of experts. For example, the steward of the princess manor, Uncle Fang, was an expert that wasn't any weaker than Lu Ming. Furthermore, there was also a large group of imperial guards that weren't weak. Faced with such a heavy encirclement, Fei Ren was bound to fall into a bloody battle. At that time, even if he was lucky enough to escape, Chu Qian would probably not let the matter rest. She might really spread a wanted order through the imperial court and put a bounty on his head. Indecisiveness leads to chaos, Fei Ren thought in his heart. He could not help but clench his fists tightly. He was not willing to be tied to the same chariot as the royal family of Great Chu. Although the other party was a woman, in order to escape, he could only let Chu Qian suffer a little. Although Chu Qian's cultivation was not weak, it was only around the 5th level of the high star realm. Furthermore, it seemed that she had just broken through not long ago, and her cultivation was not stable yet. If Fei Ren wanted to win, it would be very easy, and he would not need to use his full strength. Fei Ren, you are too confident. Do you really think that this princess is trash like Qingli? Alright, this princess will agree to your conditions. Let's have a match. You are a man, so don't go back on your words if you lose. The expression on her face gradually returned to normal. In the next moment, Chu Qian also let out a soft laugh. Her charming face was brimming with confidence. After all, she was a direct descendant of the royal family. Since she was young, the cultivation methods and martial arts she cultivated were all top-notch. Furthermore, she had many trump cards and life-saving methods. Not to mention that Fei Ren was only at the 3rd level of the high star realm. Chu Qian's strength could even hold the upper hand against the geniuses of the 3 and 9 ranks of the great families. This was also one of the reasons why she was not afraid of Fei Ren's challenge. In her heart, she was already certain of victory. A gentleman's word cannot be taken back. Without any objections, Fei Ren nodded slightly. Right now, he only wanted to escape from the princess residence as soon as possible. As for anything else, it had nothing to do with him. All right. Little green, little red, tell the servants to see the guest out. Today, this princess wants to show off her skills. Chu Qian glanced at the 2 young maids beside her. In the next moment, she raised her hand and said. Clearly, she had made up her mind. She planned to completely defeat Fei Ren and make him submit. Yes, princess. Seeing that Chu Qian intended to personally make a move, the 2 young maids did not dare to stop her again. It seemed that they were afraid of being reprimanded earlier. They immediately nodded and left. What's going on? This brat actually wants to compete with the princess. He is too arrogant. Rumor has it that Princess Lu Yuan's talent and strength are extraordinary. She has already stepped into the 5th level of the high star realm, far surpassing Qingli, who came from the 9 ranks of the great families. How can this brat be a match for the princess? The situation changed again and again. Nie Qingfeng, who was watching from the side, was also stunned. He was somewhat confused. First, Chu Qian appeared to intercept Fei Ren. Now, the 2 of them wanted to compete. This was something that had never been seen in the previous martial tea gatherings of the Princess Manor. Moreover, it was not only him. The surrounding geniuses also looked at each other and discussed animatedly. The princess has ordered that the martial tea gathering is now over. Your Excellency, please return. Just as Nie Qingfeng was surprised, a soft female voice came from the side. He saw that a young and handsome maid had unknowingly stood beside him. She then bowed and said, Miss, who is that brat? Why did the princess personally make a move? Seeing that the other party was chasing away the guest, Nie Qingfeng asked at this moment. He seemed to be somewhat unwilling. After all, the most exciting scene was about to take place, but the martial tea gathering had come to an abrupt end. I don't know. I heard that his name is Fei Ren. He is just a rogue cultivator. Please return. Don't make things difficult for me. The young maid shook her head and said. At the same time, she bowed slightly. Fei Ren? Could it be him? Hearing this, Nie Qingfeng was stunned at first. Then, his expression changed drastically, as if he had recalled something unforgettable. Nie Feng died tragically outside. Long Jingqiu has been hemming and hawing, not daring to say anything. He only said that it was a rogue cultivator called Fei Ren. If there is no one with the same name, it should be this brat. Secretly sucking in a breath of cold air, Nie Qingfeng suppressed the shock in his heart. His expression was uncertain. He and Nie Feng, who had died at the hands of Fei Ren, were from the same family. They were both direct descendants of the Nie family, a first-rate force in the imperial city. However, he was slightly stronger than Nie Feng. Moreover, he was a sworn brother of the Long family's young master, Long Jingqiu. No wonder Long Jingqiu ran away as if he had seen a ghost. It turns out that he met his sworn enemy. However, I have no enmity with this Fei Ren. If there is anything, he will only look for Long Jingqiu to settle the score. Fortunately, thinking of this, Nie Qingfeng breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he turned around and hurriedly left the county lord's mansion. Clearly, he did not intend to stay any longer. Not long after, the various geniuses in the county lord's mansion had all left. Apart from a few maids and guards, only Fei Ren and Chu Qian were left in the courtyard. At this moment, they were staring at each other from afar. The atmosphere around the stone pavilion gradually became tense. It was as if a great battle was about to break out. Princess, please forgive me, cupping his hands. Fei Ren's expression was solemn. In the next moment, strands of golden origin power gushed out from his body. They coiled around his body like a golden dragon. At the same time, he emitted a soul-stirring and invisible aura. Chapter 201. Fei Ren, I'll make you accept your defeat today. Chu Qian frowned slightly as strands of powerful origin power gushed out from her body. In the next moment, she flew up and slapped her palm toward Fei Ren. Swoosh! In an instant, Fei Ren felt a gust of wind whistling toward him. His opponent's attack was extremely swift and ferocious. In an instant, she was already in front of him. It was obvious that she did not intend to hold back. 5 Mountain King capturing palm. With a low shout, a heavy palm suddenly blasted forward. In the face of Chu Qian's sudden attack, Fei Ren did not retreat. Instead, he moved forward to meet her attack head-on. Bang! Their palms collided, and in the next moment, an earth-shattering sound rang out. 2 different types of yuan power entangled and swallowed each other, before suddenly exploding. Fei Ren and Chu Qian's figures borrowed this extraordinary impact to fall backwards, and each of them retreated more than 10 steps. They were evenly matched. Not far away, a few young maidservants who were watching the battle were shocked. Although Chu Qian rarely fought personally, her strength was enough to rank among the many disciples of the imperial family. Even the current crown prince, Chu Jiuxing, could not be underestimated. It could be said that she was not inferior to men. However, when facing a loose cultivator, Fei Ren, whose origin power cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the star realm, Chu Qian was still unable to gain the upper hand. This was truly shocking. Is this guy called Fei Ren so powerful? Could it be that the princess is purposely holding back because she is afraid of injuring him? The young maidservant named Xiao Chui was slightly stunned. Then, she gently covered her slightly opened mouth with a shocked expression. In her opinion, Chu Qian must have held back. Otherwise, with Fei Ren's strength, he would not be Chu Qian's opponent at all. Boom! However, before Xiao Chui could think further, another rumble came from the surroundings of the stone pavilion. Chu Qian's attack did not slow down, and she pressed forward step by step. Immediately, dozens of sky-blue origin power ribbons blasted out in the air and swept toward Fei Ren's vital point. Although Chu Qian's attack was fierce, Fei Ren did not suffer any serious injuries. At this moment, his body was like a swift swallow as he moved up and down, leaving behind afterimages. He dodged most of the attacks. His speed was obviously not bad. Boom! Another beam of origin power streaked across the sky and landed heavily on the ground in front of Fei Ren. It left a deep pit in the ground. The origin power aura inside the pit was condensed and didn't disperse. It was enough to show how powerful the origin power was. If an ordinary Star Realm cultivator had been hit head-on, they would have lost a layer of skin even if they didn't die. What a powerful move! Its power is close to that of a rank 4 martial art. This lass is indeed the Emperor's favorite Princess Royal. Stepping on his elemental energy, Fei Ren's body was as light as a swallow at this moment. He dodged all of Chu Qian's attacks, and at the same time, landed steadily not far behind with a surprised expression on his face. Presently, the flying earth escape technique had already stepped into the initial stage. Fei Ren was also able to condense a pair of wings of origin energy behind him and fly in the sky. But Chu Qian's strength was still insufficient to force him to use this move. Moreover, executing flight in the sky consumed an extreme amount of origin energy. Unless it was a last resort, he wouldn't easily use it. Fei Ren, do you only know how to run? Seeing that Fei Ren had been using his speed to dodge left and right instead of facing her head-on, Chu Qian's pretty face was slightly angered, and she shouted loudly. In her opinion, although her opponent wasn't weak and could easily defeat Qing Li from the pavilion of Prince Ting, that was the extent of his strength. He wasn't a match for her at all. However, what Chu Qian didn't expect was that Fei Ren didn't face her head-on, not because he wasn't strong enough, but because he had other concerns. Currently, there were many experts in the princess residence, and many pairs of eyes were staring at him. Fei Ren wasn't a fool. He knew that if he dared to hurt Chu Qian, he would definitely be surrounded by a large number of experts from the princess residence. Rather than that, he might as well win with speed. As long as Chu Qian's origin energy was exhausted, Fei Ren would naturally be able to defeat her without a fight. With the help of the flying sky and earth burrowing technique, even a martial artist at the 7th level of the star realm might not be able to catch up to him, let alone Chu Qian, whose cultivation was only at the 5th level of the star realm. Thus, Fei Ren was very confident. Your Highness, speed is also a kind of strength. As long as you can defeat me, the previous promise is still valid, Fei Ren grinned. Facing Chu Qian's provocation, he naturally didn't fall for it. At the same time, the tip of his foot lightly touched the ground, and he soared into the air again. He narrowly dodged his opponent's attack, and was still unharmed. Brat, let's see how you dodge this move. Seeing Fei Ren soar into the air, Chu Qian suddenly smiled coldly from below. In the next moment, a white light flashed in her hand, and she took out a sky-blue sword from the spirit ring on her finger. At the same time, the words, Heavenly Lady, were engraved on the sword's edge. This is a 3rd-grade spirit treasure. In the air, Fei Ren was slightly surprised when he saw his opponent reveal her natal spirit treasure. A 3rd-grade spirit treasure was several times more powerful than a 2nd-grade spirit treasure. Moreover, it was also very expensive in the black market. An ordinary 3rd-grade spirit treasure could be exchanged for tens of thousands of low-grade origin stones. Moreover, it was usually priceless. The sky-blue sword in Chu Qian's hand was obviously not an ordinary 3rd-grade spirit treasure. Its power was even more powerful. Heavenly Lady Sword Art, Flowing Cloud. No longer showing mercy, Chu Qian also shouted at this moment. At the same time, rolling origin power wrapped around her sword. In the next moment, she swung her sword diagonally. A biting cold sky-blue sword chi also swept towards Fei Ren in the air like a flowing cloud. Not good. I've been tricked. As the sword chi attacked, Fei Ren's face turned cold. He knew that things weren't going well. Previously, on the ground, he could use his martial arts to easily dodge his opponent's attack. However, now that he was in the air, his body didn't have any leverage. Facing Chu Qian's biting cold attack, it was difficult to dodge easily. He could only take this sword head-on. Clang! Boom! In the blink of an eye, a wisp of majestic origin power suddenly gushed out from Fei Ren's arms. Then, his entire arms transformed into a gorgeous reddish-gold color, like Shaolin Bodhidharma. At the same time, it blocked Chu Qian's sword chi. The origin power exploded and overflowed. In the next moment, his body fell to the ground. Bang! The soles of his feet landed heavily on the ground, shaking up a layer of air waves. That was close. I was almost tricked by this girl. With my current strength, it's not enough to withstand this sword. A sweet taste surged up his throat. Fei Ren's face was a little scared. Although he had origin power to protect his body, the power of his opponent's sword was not weak. Even some of the southern barbarian martial artists who cultivated their body would not dare to take it head-on. If it wasn't for Bodhidharma 1000 transformation technique that could transform his arms into Bodhidharma golden arms that could attack and defend, Fei Ren would have been seriously injured this time. At the very least, he would have spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. As for ordinary martial artists of the same level, they would have been killed by Chu Qian's sword on the spot. How can this be? He actually blocked it? On the other side, compared to Fei Ren, Chu Qian was even more shocked. She had never thought that her powerful sword would be blocked by her opponent. Furthermore, Fei Ren was still in midair, so there was no space for him to dodge. This brat. He didn't fight back before because he looked down on this princess. Thinking of this, Chu Qian was even more furious. It turned out that Fei Ren was not weaker than her. Instead, he did not want to fight with her at all. After all, the fairy sword art was a first-rate rank 3 martial art. Its power was extraordinary. Chu Qian's origin power cultivation was at the 5th level of the star realm. With the two of them supporting each other, its power increased by a few levels. Even an ordinary 6th level star realm martial artist would have a hard time blocking it. On the other hand, Fei Ren's origin power cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the star realm. Not only did he block her sword head-on, but he also did not seem to be injured. How could Chu Qian not be angry? Chapter 202. Beside the stone pavilion, Princess, I really don't want to fight with you, please let me go. The golden light on his arms gradually faded and returned to normal. In the next moment, Fei Ren smiled bitterly. Now that he was in the princess residence, he could sense that there were at least 5 to 6 strong elemental energy auras. Furthermore, they were constantly staring at him. If Chu Qian fell into a disadvantageous position and showed signs of being injured, Fei Ren was certain that these hidden experts would definitely appear. Moreover, unless it was absolutely necessary, he was unwilling to reveal his true strength. This might cause more trouble. If Fei Ren had planned to win with force, Chu Qian would not have had a chance to fight back. This girl is really stubborn. I didn't know that the Princess Lu Yuan was such a strong-willed person. Fei Ren felt helpless. He was in a dilemma now. Moreover, looking at the other party, it seemed that she was determined to win. Cut the crap. Since you have such strength, why didn't you dare to fight back? Are you looking down on me? Just as he finished speaking, Chu Qian snorted disapprovingly. Princess, there are many experts in your residence. Don't tell me you don't know how many pairs of eyes are watching here? Moreover, you are the Princess Royal and have the title of Princess Lu Yuan. As a citizen of the Dachu dynasty, how can I offend my superior? Fei Ren grinned and retracted the aura around him. It seemed that he did not plan to fight anymore. Although he had exposed the Dharma 1000 transformation technique and the Dharma golden arm, the secret of the immortal refining cauldron and the green dragon halberd had not been exposed. Fei Ren was slightly relieved. If the secret of the immortal refining cauldron was exposed, there would be no place for him in the entire Black Star continent, let alone the Dachu dynasty. You're right. However, we must determine the winner today. Fei Ren, I admire your strength. Looking at the cultivation method and martial arts that you used before, I can tell that you have an extraordinary opportunity. No wonder Qing Li and the others were not your match. But don't worry, this princess will not covet your opportunity. You can also use your full strength. If you can injure me, I won't pursue the matter. In the face of Fei Ren's rhetorical question, Chu Qian was stunned at this moment. She fell into deep thought. However, in the next moment, she raised the long sword in her hand again and pointed the tip of the sword at Fei Ren, who was not far away. Why is this girl so stubborn? Hearing this, Fei Ren also felt a headache coming on. He couldn't help but have the urge to rush up and knock Chu Qian on the head. The other party didn't listen to him at all. Take this. Without giving Fei Ren a chance to react, Chu Qian brandished her sword and attacked again. Boom! The long sword swept across the sky, instantly bursting out dozens of sky-blue sword chi, immediately enveloping Fei Ren from top to bottom, without a single blind spot. The attack was fierce. The Tier 3 spirit treasure in Chu Qian's hand was called the Fairy Sword. Furthermore, the Fairy Sword art that she performed was one of the best among the Tier 3 martial arts. Its power was close to that of a Tier 4 martial art. In addition, her origin energy cultivation was not weak. Even Fei Ren did not dare to be careless. It's coming again. Looks like I can only teach this girl a lesson. Seeing that his persuasion was fruitless, Faerun immediately gave up on the peace talk. Strands of golden origin energy once again gushed out from his body. At the same time, he raised his hand and blasted out dozens of giant origin energy palms, facing the incoming sky-blue sword chi head-on. Bang! Rumble! In a flash, the giant origin energy palms and the sky-blue sword chi fiercely collided with each other, emitting a violent shockwave. A wave of powerful impact spread out in all directions, causing the ground around the stone pavilion to tremble slightly. Swish! With a flash of his figure, Faerun used the remaining force of the impact to move his feet and land steadily at the side. Is this girl crazy? Do you really think that I don't dare to hurt her? With a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, Faerun's expression was solemn. In order to not hurt Chu Qian, he only used less than 50% of his strength. Moreover, he did not use his trump cards, such as the 8 trigrams flag and the green dragon halberd. The 5 Mountain King capturing palm was only a broken quasi-rank 4 martial art, and its power was inferior to Chu Qian's heavenly sword art. Moreover, the opponent's origin energy cultivation was 2 realms higher than Faerun's. In addition, Faerun did not use his full strength, so it was inevitable that he would suffer some injuries. Forget it. I'll capture her first. As long as I don't hurt this girl, the experts in the princess's mansion won't do anything to me. Thinking up to here, Faerun also made up his mind. At the same time, he spread out his arms, and in the next moment, strands of golden origin energy appeared once again. In an instant, his entire arm actually transformed into a reddish-gold color, just like Shaolin Bodhidharma. Just like what Chu Qian said before, as long as he could win this competition, the opponent would not pursue the crime of offending his superior. Moreover, the experts in the princess's mansion who were hiding in the princess's mansion would have no reason to deal with him. Faerun, you'll definitely lose today. Just as Faerun was thinking, Chu Qian waved her sword and attacked again. Moreover, her attack was even more ferocious than before. Heavenly Sword Art, 9th Style, Heavenly Flower Scattering. Chu Qian's eyes narrowed. In the next moment, her jade-like hand trembled slightly, and she wielded her sword diagonally. Boom! A large amount of origin energy swept out, and an enormous sky-blue sword chi burst out from the sword. Then, it soared into the air and exploded, turning into countless icy blue sword chi. It fell from the sky like a heavenly flower scattering, and its power was shocking. The heavenly sword art had a total of 9 styles. At the same time, the power of the 9th style was close to a quasi-rank 4 martial art. In addition to the support of the rank 3 Spirit Treasure Fairy Sword, the combination of the 2 styles made its power comparable to a real rank 4 martial art. At the same time, this was also Chu Qian's strongest trump card. Brat. Let's see how you're going to fight this time. Chu Qian's red lips curled up slightly as she wielded her sword. A touch of pride appeared in her beautiful eyes. In the past, she had used this trump card to defeat a rank 6 Star Realm martial artist. At the same time, she had fought to a draw with a rank 7 Star Realm veteran expert. Therefore, she was very confident that Faerun would definitely lose. Great! Faced with the sword chi that filled the sky, Faerun laughed. At the same time, his palms blasted out continuously. In an instant, a dozen origin energy giant palms appeared out of thin air and faced the oncoming sword chi head-on. Although Faerun had held back previously, he had to admit that Chu Qian, who was Princess Lu Yuan, was indeed more powerful than those young geniuses before. She was the only opponent who had forced him to go all out. After all, even Qingli, who came from the pavilion of Prince Ting, the 9 ranks of the great families, could not make Faerun use the power of the Dharma transformation technique. He was sent flying with just 2 slap. Boom, boom, boom. In a breath's time, the dozen origin energy giant palms could not resist the power of the sword chi that filled the sky. They collapsed and dissipated one after another, producing bursts of rumbling sounds. In the next moment, the sword chi that filled the sky did not diminish in the slightest. It continued to fall toward Fei Ren on the ground. At the same time, it blocked all the blind spots in the surrounding area. The attack was fierce. "Dharma Golden Arm!" Fei Ren shouted in a low voice. In the next moment, he withdrew his hands to his waist. At the same time, he placed them horizontally in front of him. Obviously, he did not plan to dodge. Instead, he planned to use his physical body to resist the attack of the sword chi that filled the sky. His eyes were burning with passion. Chapter 203. This move again. Chu Qian was slightly taken aback when she saw Fei Ren's arms turn into a reddish-gold color again. In the next moment she clenched her teeth and said, "But it's useless. The power of my sword is comparable to a fourth-grade martial art. You won't be able to block it with your mere third-grade Star Realm cultivation." The fairy sword art was her most powerful trump card, and it was also one of her most famous techniques. Even her brother, the current crown prince, Chu Jiuxing, didn't dare to block it with his physical body. Yet, Fei Ren was so arrogant that he tried to block it with his physical body. It was like a fantasy story. "We'll know if it's useful after we try." Fei Ren was determined when he heard Chu Qian's persuasion. He immediately activated his origin power again, and the dazzling golden light on his arms shone even brighter. His entire body seemed to be covered by a layer of golden light, and he exuded a shocking aura. This guy really doesn't want to live anymore. Chu Qian watched in horror as the sword aura that filled the sky descended. Rumble! A large amount of sword chi swept out and raged, instantly enveloping the area around Fei Ren. The next moment, there was a loud explosion, producing a series of ear-piercing tremors. Fei Ren's body was also enveloped by the sword chi, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. "This guy is interesting. He actually forced the princess to use her full strength. He's a good seedling." Not far away, on top of the eaves, a white-haired elder stood with his hands behind his back. At this moment, he was looking in the direction of the stone pavilion. It was Uncle Fang, whom Fei Ren had met in the princess residence. The battle between Chu Qian and Fei Ren was so intense that it naturally attracted the attention of many people. Just as Fei Ren had guessed, other than Uncle Fang, there were many experts from the princess residence who were hiding in the dark. It was because of these people that Fei Ren didn't want to use his full strength in the beginning. If he accidentally hurt Chu Qian, he would be surrounded. Cough cough. The remaining power gradually dissipated, and a gray figure slowly emerged from it. His originally delicate and pretty face was dirty and messy, and his clothes were tattered. Several clearly visible bruises were engraved on his bare chest, and there were bloodstains on them. It seemed that his injuries were not light. Fortunately, the defense of the Dharma Golden Arm is amazing. Otherwise, I would have been cut in half by this girl's sword. Fei Ren's expression was serious. Although Chu Qian didn't intend to kill him earlier, the power of her sword was extraordinary. It was enough to kill an ordinary martial artist below the 5th level of the Star Realm. This girl's desire to win is too strong. Thinking of this, Fei Ren wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Although he had suffered some injuries, it did not affect his strength much. At this moment, he still had about 70 to 80% of his origin energy left in his dantian, which was enough for him to execute the Dharma Golden Arm several times. On the other hand, his opponent had frequently used a quasi-rank 4 martial art, which consumed a lot of his origin energy. His might and combat strength were no longer as strong as before. "Are you all right?" Looking at Fei Ren in front of her, who was in a sorry state and had wounds on his chest, Chu Qian was slightly stunned. Then, she subconsciously opened her mouth and spoke in a hesitant tone. I didn't expect that a rogue cultivator like me would receive the princess's concern. It's my honor." Hearing this, the corners of Fei Ren's mouth curled up. There was a playful look on his face. "Nonsense. Who cares about you? I'm just afraid that you'll die. If that happens, I'll have to trouble the princess to collect your corpse." Just as she finished speaking, Chu Qian's face turned red. She immediately understood something and said coldly, "The princess has won. It seems that this kid's strength is only SOSO. There's no need for us to do anything." In a dark corner of the county lord's residence, 2 black-clothed guards with bright eyes could be seen. They seemed to be the experts of the county lord's residence. At this moment, they were quietly hiding and looking in the direction of the stone pavilion from time to time. It was obvious that they had witnessed the battle between Fei Ren and Chu Qian. "Look, that kid hasn't fallen yet." Suddenly, the other black-clothed guard beside him whispered, "What?" Hearing his companion's reminder, the black-clothed guard's expression changed slightly. He then looked at Fei Ren, who was not far away. "Princess, you're very strong. However, I'm sorry. I can't lose this battle." With a grin, Fei Ren's eyes suddenly flashed with a strong desire to battle. Just like what he had said before, if he lost this battle, he would have to work for the royal family. It was equivalent to signing a contract to sell himself. Naturally, he could not agree to it. Swoosh. Stepping on the afterimages, Fei Ren's figure also shot out like a sharp arrow. In an instant, he charged towards Chu Qian, who was not far away. Previously, it was the other party who had taken the initiative to attack. This was the first time he took the initiative to counterattack. "You! How can this be?" Seeing that Fei Ren's aura did not decrease and was charging towards her, Chu Qian's expression changed slightly. Due to the frequent use of quasi-level 4 martial arts, there was less than a tenth of the origin power in her body left. Her combat power had decreased greatly and it was difficult for her to unleash her full strength. "Princess, I'm sorry." "You." Fei Ren's voice slowly sounded in her ears. Before Chu Qian could react, she saw Fei Ren appear behind her in the next moment. At the same time, his left hand turned into a sword and stretched out. In an instant, he hit all the acupuncture points on her body. His attack was like the wind. The reason why a martial artist was strong was because of the origin power in his dantian. Without the support of origin power, his combat power would be greatly reduced and he would not be much stronger than an ordinary person. Origin power came from the dantian and gathered in the acupuncture points through the meridians. From there, it allowed a martial artist to control powerful strength. Now that Fei Ren had sealed all the acupuncture points on Chu Qian's body, she was temporarily unable to use origin power. It was equivalent to losing all her combat power. "Fei Ren, you bastard! How dare you use a sneak attack? Despicable!" Sensing that her yuan power was rapidly depleting until it completely disappeared, Chu Qian also lightly bit her lips with her pearly white teeth. Her pair of beautiful eyes angrily looked at Fei Ren. Her eyes were filled with resentment, as if she wished she could swallow him alive. Cough cough. In the face of Chu Qian's abuse, Fei Ren coughed dryly. His expression was helpless. He had no choice but to do this. After all, he could not lose, nor could he injure his opponent. The only way was to seal his opponent's acupuncture points and win without a fight. "Princess, I'll take my leave." Now that Chu Qian had lost her combat power, Fei Ren did not want to stay in the princess's residence any longer. He immediately cupped his hands and turned to leave. "Fei Ren, stop right there. I haven't lost yet." Seeing that Fei Ren was about to leave, Chu Qian spoke again. A trace of anger appeared on her exquisite face, as if she was not convinced of her loss. However, Fei Ren's speed did not decrease at all. It was obvious that he had no intention of stopping. "Miss, are you all right?" Fang Bo's figure flickered before he slowly landed beside Chu Qian. His eyebrows were slightly furrowed. He had witnessed the entire fight. Even though Fei Ren's final victory was somewhat disgraceful, he had still won. Moreover, Chu Qian was still too young. "Uncle Feng, stop this brat for me." Glancing at Uncle Feng beside her, Chu Qian softly shouted. It was as if she was unwilling to let the matter rest. Miss, didn't you agree to let this little kid leave the princess's residence if he won? Miss, you represent the imperial family. If news of you going back on your words spread, it will inevitably cause criticism in the world." Hearing this, the white-haired elder named Uncle Feng was stunned. He then laughed dryly and advised in a tone of persuasion. Although his strength was enough to stop Fei Ren, he did not want to let Chu Qian do as she pleased. After all, the imperial family's image could not be tarnished. Chapter 204. So annoying. You're always saying this. I'm only doing this because I want to share some of the pressure with my father. Uncle's influence has been growing in the court over the years, and even some of the court officials have come to curry favor with him. Moreover, Uncle has many experts under his command, so my father is even more worried. Chu Qian stomped her foot in dissatisfaction at the white-haired old man's advice. A trace of unease appeared on her delicate face. Although the current emperor, Chu Tianyong, had long sensed the disloyalty of King Jin, Chu Wen, he was extremely powerful and had many capable soldiers under his command. He also had some supporters within the imperial family. Thus, even if Chu Tianyong wanted to place righteousness before family, he did not dare to act rashly. He could only wait for an opportunity. Miss, this old servant understands your thoughts, but we can't rush the matter of roping in experts. It won't be too late for us to make plans after the World Conference of Heroes. Hearing this, the white-haired old man sighed helplessly. The white-haired old man was called Feng Xiao. In his early years, he had followed the current emperor, Chu Tianyong, to many battles. His strength was unfathomable, and he had made great achievements in battle. However, the cruel battles in his early years had left some indelible internal injuries in his body, causing his strength to decline. Although Feng Zhao's strength was not as great as before, he was still a 9th-level Star Realm cultivator. Thus, Chu Tianyong had personally assigned him to work in the princess residence. On the surface, he was only a steward in the residence, but he was secretly Chu Qian's personal guard, the most powerful expert in the entire princess residence. Due to his age and experience, and his strength, Feng Zhao's status in the princess residence was not low. Ordinary servants, maids, and guards had to respectfully address him as Uncle Feng. "Uncle Feng, what do you think we should do?" Chu Qian said weakly as she turned her head to look at Feng Xiao. Now that Fei Ren had left, she was unable to stop him even if she wanted to. Unless she really wanted to issue an arrest warrant and put a bounty on his head in the entire Darchu dynasty. This old servant thinks that this little kid's talent is not bad. He will definitely participate in the World Hero competition in a couple of days. At that time, we should be able to see him again. At that time, we can ask for the Emperor's help. Warriors need nothing more than yuan stones, pills, and spirit treasures. As long as the price your majesty offers is high enough, there is no need to be afraid that this little child will refuse. He is indeed a good seedling to be able to reach this step as a loose cultivator. In the future, this child will definitely become an expert of the Dachu dynasty. Feng Xiao gently stroked his long beard and nodded. He seemed to have a plan in his heart. "All right, I'll leave it to you then." Chu Qian also waved her hand when she heard this. After which, she gently moved her feet and turned around to leave this stone pavilion. The few young female servants, who were in a daze, also recovered. Immediately, they followed closely behind Chu Qian's footsteps. "Master Feng, do you need me to capture this brat and bring him back to the mansion?" After Chu Qian left, the few black-clothed guards hiding in the dark appeared one after another. One of the black-clothed guards knelt on one knee and asked Fang Xiao, who was in front of him, "Oh, are you sure you want to take action?" Fang Xiao glanced at the black-clothed guard in front of him and stroked his long beard. There was a faint smile on his old face, and there was a hint of playfulness. It seemed that he did not have high hopes for the other party. Yes. The black-clothed guard lowered his head again. His yuan qi cultivation was at the 6th level of the star realm. Although his overall strength was not as high as Chu Qian's, it was not too far off. Moreover, in his opinion, Fei Ren had just experienced a great battle, so his strength was not at its peak. It would not be difficult to capture him alive. You still underestimate him. This child's strength is not just limited to this. Not to mention you alone, even if I ask all of you to take action together, you may not be a match for him. It is very likely that you will anger him and lose your lives for nothing. Fang Xiao shook his head. In the face of his subordinate's request, a rare seriousness appeared on his face. It seemed that he had already sensed Fei Ren's strength was not ordinary. How? This child's strength is really so powerful. Hearing this, not only the black-clothed guard, but the other black-clothed guards also looked at each other. In their opinion, although Fei Ren's strength was not bad, it was absolutely not to such an extent that even their combined strength was not a match for him. However, Fang Xiao in front of them was a veteran Star Realm expert. Moreover, he was one of the former great commanders of the Steel Corps. His strength and vision were powerful, so his judgment would naturally not be wrong. No matter how shocked the black-clothed guards were, they did not dare to refute him. "Lord Fang, what else do you need us to do?" Seeing this scene, the black-clothed guard restrained his expression and said in a deep voice. Since Fang Xiao had already spoken, his heart was like a mirror. Naturally, he would not take the initiative to find trouble with Fei Ren. Send someone to the Li residence to inform Li Mi to give some benefits to that Fei Ren. Have a better attitude. Just say that it is the princess's wish. It is inevitable that there will be some misunderstandings in this martial tea gathering. Tell him not to take it too seriously. Gently stroking his long beard, Fang Xiao spoke again with a calm tone. Li Mi was the current Imperial Court's Grand Commandant, a rank 1 official. The Li family behind him was also a first-rate force. They had a close relationship with the great Chu royal family. However, Li Mi was a civil official and not a military general. He was only good at poetry and singing. His strength was also very ordinary, only at the 2nd level of the Middle Union realm. For such a person to curry favor with Fei Ren, firstly, it would give him face. Secondly, it would make it easier for Fei Ren to lower his guard. It was enough to show the princess's sincerity to rope him in. This subordinate accepts the order. Hearing this, the black-clothed guards also cupped their fists and quietly retreated. Their figures gradually disappeared into the darkness until they disappeared. Although I escaped from that girl Chu Qian's entanglement, I still feel that the trouble has not disappeared. Returning to his residence, Fei Ren's expression was deep in thought. Today, he could be said to have displayed his might in the princess's residence. First, he beat up the genius Qing Li from the 9th ranks of the great families. Then, he defeated the noble princess Chu Qian, although his victory was not very glorious. Who is it? At this moment, he suddenly heard a few footsteps outside the room. In the next moment, Fei Ren narrowed his eyes and flashed out. You must be my young friend Fei Ren? Outside the room, a middle-aged man in a brocade robe stood with his hands by his side. After seeing Fei Ren appear, he also grinned and cupped his fists. The brocade-robed middle-aged man in front of him had an extraordinary temperament. Although he was not young, from the outline of his face, one could see a trace of handsomeness. The only flaw was that his strength was too weak. His yuan power cultivation was only at the 2nd level of the Middle Union realm. I am Fei Ren. Who are you? After sensing that the other party had no ill intentions and was weak, Fei Ren also nodded slightly. The vigilance in his heart was slightly lowered, and he also cupped his fist. I am Li Mi. This time, I am here on the order of Princess Lu Yuan to apologize to my young friend Fei Ren. In the face of Fei Ren's probing, the brocade-robed middle-aged man also chuckled. Then, he took out a shiny silver spirit ring from his sleeve and handed it over to Fei Ren in the next moment. Middle-grade spirit ring? Princess Her Highness is so generous. Wait, you said that you are Li Mi. Could it be that you are the current Imperial Court's Grand Commandant Li Mi? Lifting his hand to receive the spirit ring, Fei Ren's face was slightly surprised. In the next moment, he opened his mouth and said, Your humble servant is not talented, but I am. With a faint smile, Li Mi nodded again. Chapter 205. I've heard that Lord Li's talent is soaring to the sky and your reputation is widespread. I've also heard a little about it. My apologies. After knowing the background of the other party, Fei Ren restrained his expression and cupped his fists as he spoke. In the Dachu dynasty, the strongest martial artist was Emperor Chu Tianyang. However, the person with the most literary talent was Li Mi in front of him. Not only were his poems and songs widely circulated in the Dachu dynasty, but they were also faintly praised by the surrounding countries. It could be said that his literary talent was awe-inspiring and famous. Although the martial arts trend prevailed in the Xianxing continent and people cultivated Yuan power in order to break through the shackles in hopes of obtaining powerful strength, in some low-level dynasties and small countries, the status of literati was not low and they were deeply respected by the people. After all, for some poor people, they did not have any talent for cultivation and were not martial artists. They were at the bottom of the Xianxing continent. Apart from drinking wine, the only spiritual life left was poetry and songs, which were used to relieve boredom and express the loneliness in their hearts. Therefore, Fei Ren was not too proud of Li Mi in front of him. The other party was worthy of his respect. Little brother Fei Ren, you're too courteous. I'm only a scholar with a belly full of literary talent, and my cultivation in origin energy is low. On the other hand, little brother, your natural talent is extraordinary, and you'll surely become a heroic expert of the Dachu dynasty in the future. In the face of Fei Ren's praise, Li Mi was very modest. He seemed to know his own limitations and shook his head with a smile. Although he was talented and was an official of the first-grade Grand Commandant, his reputation and prestige were limited to the Dachu dynasty. In the Xianxing continent, strength was respected. Without cultivating Yuan power and becoming a martial artist, it was difficult to change one's fate. Therefore, Li Mi could be considered to have dabbled in martial arts. However, his talent for cultivation was average. After cultivating for dozens of years, he was only a second-grade Middle Union martial artist. His strength was not worth mentioning. The things in this intermediate spirit ring are the princess's compensation. I hope little friend Fei Ren doesn't mind the previous misunderstanding. Changing the topic, Li Mi said again. Under Feng Zhao's instructions, Li Mi also had some understanding of what had happened in the princess residence today. Immediately, he couldn't help but have a whole new level of respect for Fei Ren. After all, a young genius who could fight evenly with Chu Qian was quite rare even in the imperial city. With Chu Qian's strength, she wouldn't be at a disadvantage even if she were to fight against the genius disciples of the 3 and 9 ranks of the great families. However, in the end, Fei Ren had sealed her acupoints and won without a fight. This was enough to show that Fei Ren's strength wasn't weak. Most importantly, his origin power cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the Star Realm. He's already at the 3rd level of the Star Realm at such a young age, and his strength far surpasses that of his peers. This child is indeed a genius. No wonder Her Highness the eldest princess took a liking to him and spent so much to rope him in. Li Mi secretly praised himself in his heart as a glimmer of light flashed across his deep eyes. Although he was only an errand boy this time, it wasn't a loss to be able to see such an outstanding talent like Fei Ren. Thank you, Sir Li. I hope you can go back and tell Her Highness that I don't care about such trivial matters. I'll accept this intermediate spirit ring. If Her Highness needs anything in the future, I'll do my best to help. Although he already knew Li Mi's background and plans, Fei Ren was still very polite on the surface. With such a huge sum of money in front of him, he naturally wouldn't let it go. Furthermore, Chu Qian's actions were still to rope him in. Fei Ren was also very clear in his heart that although it was impossible for him to sell his life for the imperial family, on account of the fact that there was no discord, no concord, and this windfall, Fei Ren didn't mind returning the favor. Okay. I'll take my leave first. Seeing that Fei Ren's attitude had changed and he finally relented, Li Mi raised his eyebrows slightly and laughed out loud. The next moment, he turned around and left. He had already completed the task that Fei Ren had instructed him to do. Moreover, he didn't expect Fei Ren to be so straightforward at first. Not only did he accept the compensation, but he also promised to do him a favor. For Li Mi, this visit was already a gain. Although Fei Ren still didn't agree to work for the imperial family, this matter was already a good start. In the face of a young genius like Fei Ren, Li Mi naturally knew that he couldn't push his luck. Otherwise, it would be easy for him to fail. I don't know what Chu Qian sent over. It's a intermediate spirit ring. The Chu clan is really rich. After Li Mi left, Fei Ren took out a sparkling silver spirit ring from his bosom with a curious expression on his face. Physical body golden core. Low-grade origin stone. Grade 3 and above medicinal materials. Mystic grade monster core. Looking inside the spirit ring with his origin energy, Fei Ren's mouth gradually widened. His eyes became a little incredulous. He saw that the huge spirit ring was filled with treasures. There were countless origin stones, monster cores, and medicinal materials. There were even some valuable elixirs. TSK, this girl is really willing to pay a price. If I don't help, it will seem a little unjust. With a thought, a brownish-yellow elixir the size of a longan appeared in Fei Ren's left palm. Physical body golden core. The elixir in his hand was a 4th-grade elixir called the Golden Body Elixir. It contained a rich medicinal efficacy that could stimulate the blood. After swallowing it, it could stimulate the 8 extraordinary meridians of the martial artist. Although it couldn't directly enhance the martial artist's cultivation, it could significantly strengthen the martial artist's physique. Therefore, it was favored by some martial artists who had refined their bodies. Moreover, the quality of the physical body golden core in Fei Ren's hand was not low. It was at least 88%, and its medicinal power was not more than 10%. According to the price in the black market, this elixir could be sold for at least tens of thousands of low-grade origin stones. It could be called a rare elixir. Now that Fei Ren's origin energy cultivation had gradually reached a balance, without a lot of resources, it would be difficult for him to break through in a short time. If he could swallow this physical body golden core to strengthen his physique, his strength would also increase by a lot. Taking back the physical body golden core, Fei Ren's gaze continued to look at the other treasures. There were many good things in this middle-grade spirit ring. In addition to the grade 4 physical body golden core, there were about 50,000 low-grade origin stones and more than 100 medicinal materials of grade 3 and above. As for the demon cores in the spirit ring, most of them were of yellow rank or above. There was a small number of mystic rank demon cores, and there were about 50 of them. Among them, the rarest one was the demon core of the mystic rank demon beast, six-eared macaque. The six-eared macaque was a demon beast that lived deep in the forests of the ancient mountains. It liked to live in groups, and its nature was fierce and aggressive. It was extremely vengeful. If a martial artist killed a six-eared macaque and was discovered by its group, that martial artist would most likely be surrounded and attacked by a group of six-eared macaques. In addition, an adult six-eared macaque's demon power would at least reach the mystic rank demon beast, and the leader of the group would be a mystic rank demon beast. Therefore, the risk of killing a six-eared macaque was not small, and its demon core was naturally expensive. A mystic rank demon core, and it's even a six-eared macaque's demon core. This time, I owe that girl Chu Qian a big favor. Looks like this power struggle in the Imperial City is destined to be difficult for me to stay out of it. Putting away the demon core in his hand, Fei Ren's expression gradually became serious. He had a premonition in his heart that the battle between Emperor Chu Tianyang and Prince Jin Chu Wen was about to begin. Chapter 206. Fei Ren put away the middle-grade spirit ring in his palm and immediately began to cultivate in seclusion. He never slacked off on the path of a martial artist. Although he couldn't break through in a short period of time, he still had the fourth-grade physical body golden pellet that Chu Qian gave him and more than 50,000 low-grade origin stones. If he absorbed all of them, he could slightly increase his strength. 7 days later, the World Heroes Conference finally arrived as scheduled. At that time, the Imperial City was bustling with noise and excitement. The young geniuses of various provinces and a large number of loose cultivators all rushed to the Imperial City of Great Chu, and there was an endless stream of people. The World Heroes Conference was held every 5 years. Martial artists who could stand out and obtain a good ranking would receive a large amount of reward. In addition, the 3/9 ranks of the great families and the upper echelons of various forces in the Imperial City would also appear to watch the competition. It could be said to be the focus of attention. In these years, there was no lack of talented loose cultivators who made a name for themselves in the World Heroes Conference and attracted the attention of the 3/9 ranks of the great families and even the Imperial family. In the end, they were taken in as disciples of sects or even experts in the Imperial Palace. Therefore, the World Heroes Conference this time was a great opportunity for a carp to leap over the Dragon Gate. It was highly valued by the martial artists of various provinces and counties, especially some young geniuses with decent strength. They hoped to obtain good results and enter the 9th ranks of the great families and the Imperial Court. But even so, the World Heroes Conference had an unchanging rule. Every participant had to be a young genius under the age of 26, and their origin power cultivation couldn't be lower than the 8th level of the Middle Union realm. If the Imperial Court and the 9th ranks of the great families found out that a participant had broken the rules, they would be severely punished or even killed. After all, since ancient times, there was no lack of martial artists with wishful thinking. About 10 years ago, there was a wandering cultivator from the northern desolate county. His cultivation was at the 5th level of the Star Realm, and he had used a strange martial art to reduce his appearance and bone age to less than 26 years old. He had registered to participate in the World Hero competition. However, this rogue cultivator was ultimately seen through by the current emperor, Chu Tianyang, and killed with a single palm strike. His corpse was then hung on the city gate tower at the northern gate of the Imperial City, exposed for 3 days and 3 nights. No one dared to collect his corpse. With this precedent, basically all the martial artists who came to participate in the World Hero competition were the younger generation of martial artists. As for those who were over the age limit or whose cultivation did not meet the requirements, they generally did not dare to pass. After all, once they were discovered, their lives would be in danger. Today is the day of the gathering of the world's heroes. It's time to come out of seclusion. At the first glimmer of dawn, Fei Ren, who was sitting cross-legged, slowly opened his eyes. After holding his breath and concentrating for an entire night, in addition to absorbing the abundant yuan power from tens of thousands of low-grade yuan stones, His yuan power cultivation had also steadily increased. He was about a quarter away from breaking through. Although his yuan power cultivation had not broken through to the 4th level of the star realm, it was very close. Moreover, in addition to the increase in his yuan power cultivation, Fei Ren's 6th level movement technique, flying sky and earth burrowing technique, had also broken through and successfully entered the realm of great mastery. Now, not only could he condense yuan power wings to fly in the air, but his speed had also more than doubled. He was now comparable to a half-step martial mentor. In other words, as long as a martial mentor did not make a move, ordinary high-level star realm martial artists would not be able to do anything to him. As long as Fei Ren wanted to escape, no one would be able to catch up to him. It could be said to be a top-notch life-saving technique. Flying sky and earth burrowing technique has entered the realm of great mastery. In addition, I have a 3rd-level spirit-type martial art, Spirit Blade. Even if I meet a strong opponent, I can still catch him off guard. Ordinary martial artists' yuan power is not as strong as an alchemist's, so it is difficult for them to resist the attack of Spirit Blade. This move can be considered my trump card. Clenching his fists, Fei Ren heavily exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. By now, he had already mastered all the martial arts he had mastered. He had also swallowed the 4th-level golden body elixir, which had turned into pure medicinal power to nourish and strengthen his body. Although Fei Ren's current physical strength was not strong enough to fight against a spirit treasure, he was invulnerable to swords and spears, water and fire. Even if he did not have the protection of Yuan Qi, ordinary weapons would not be able to hurt him, unless it was a high-grade weapon or a spirit treasure. Swoosh! Fei Ren's feet touched the ground lightly. The next moment, he broke through the door and rushed out. Then, his figure disappeared in a flash as he rushed toward the central square of the imperial city. After these days of secluded cultivation, although his strength had not improved rapidly, it could be said that he had made some small gains. He was now able to contend with ordinary 9th-level star realm martial artists. The central square of the imperial city was located outside the main gate of the imperial palace. It was large enough for tens of thousands of people to watch at the same time. Moreover, the ground of the square was made of solid asphalt stones, which could withstand the impact of yuan power. At the same time, it was also a good place for martial arts competition. After 5 years of waiting, the World Heroes competition finally began with a bang today. Outside the central square of the imperial city of the Dachu dynasty, a grand opening ceremony was held as scheduled. This year's World Heroes competition was different from the previous ones. Not only were there more participants, but there were also many famous young geniuses. Apart from the direct descendants of the various forces and families in the imperial city, even the younger generation of the 3 and 9 ranks of the great families were participating. It could be said that there were many experts present. The opening ceremony of the World Heroes competition this time was hosted by a first-rank official of the imperial court. Although the process was a little boring and full of nonsense, the various martial artists who had been waiting outside for a long time did not show any impatience. It seemed that they were already used to it. "Brother Fei, you are here as well." At this moment, a figure flashed out of the crowd and walked toward Fei Ren with a faint smile. His face was pale and handsome. It was naturally Song Sherluan, a disciple of the Song family. Brother Song, long time no see. Seeing that it was Song Sherluan, whom he had met at the martial tea party, Fei Ren cupped his hands. Apart from Situ Lai of the Alchemist Guild, Song Sherluan was one of his few friends in the imperial city. "Brother Fei, I heard that there are many experts participating in the World Heroes competition this time. Even the 3 and 9 ranks of the great families are acting out of the norm and sending disciples to participate. I didn't want to participate at first, but I can't disobey my father's orders," Song Sherluan sighed and said helplessly. It seemed that he did not have much confidence in his own strength. After all the martial artists who could participate in the World Heroes competition were extremely talented. There were not many weak martial artists in history. According to the previous results, with Song Sherluan's cultivation at the second level of the Star Realm, he would at most be able to squeeze into the top 100. He would be considered to be in the middle or lower class. Brother Song, do your best. Even if you lose, you won't regret it. Feiren also guessed Song Sherluan's thoughts. He did not say much and only nodded. If he did not have the confidence to win, then his future achievements in martial arts would be limited. Of course, he would not explain this to Song Sherluan, who was standing in front of him. Song Sherluan had to comprehend it himself. Brother Fei, I heard that there are about 500 to 600 people participating in the World Heroes competition this time. However, with your strength, you should be able to achieve a good result. At the very least, you will be able to make it into the top 50. Song Sherluan smiled faintly after he said that. He seemed to be very optimistic and didn't care about his ranking. Chapter 207. Why do you say that, elder brother? Feiren was slightly surprised. Judging from Song Sherluan's words, he seemed to know a lot about the World Conference of Heroes and had heard a lot about it. When Song Sherluan saw the interest on Feiren's face, he cleared his throat and said with a serious expression, "This is information from my family, but it's only a rough estimate. I'm not 100% sure. Although this World Conference of Heroes is filled with experts on the surface, there are 4 people who are recognized as first-rate experts by various forces. They're far better than their peers, and their strength is unfathomable. It's almost certain that they'll make it into the top 10. 4 people?" Upon hearing this, Feiren's expression turned serious. That's right. They're the top disciples of the 3-9 ranks of the great families and the current crown prince, Chu Jiuxing. Brother Fei, to put it bluntly, the strength of Qing Li, whom you defeated in the princess's mansion that day, is merely at the middle level among the numerous disciples of the pavilion of Prince Ting. It can't be considered to be at the top. The disciples of the pavilion of Prince Ting that are participating this time, even some of the veteran high-star martial artists, cannot be underestimated. They can be said to be the top disciples of the pavilion of Prince Ting. Song Sherluan sighed. Although he was a direct descendant of the Song family, a first-rate force in the imperial city, his strength and status were still weaker than the disciples of the 9 ranks of the great families. It was not difficult to understand why the nominal disciple of the Lingjian school, Liang Yuan, whom Feiren had killed in the northern Baron County, could be so domineering for so many years despite his ordinary cultivation base. Elder brother, may I know the background of the top disciple of the pavilion of Prince Ting? As the saying went, know thyself and know thy enemy, and thou shalt be victorious in every battle. Feiren naturally knew this, so he immediately asked. Although his strength was comparable to an ordinary 9th-level Star Realm martial artist, none of his opponents in the World Conference of Heroes were weak. Almost all of them were geniuses of the same generation. Moreover, Feiren dared not easily reveal some of his trump cards. Once secrets such as the immortal refining cauldron, the azure dragon halberd, and the Universe 8 trigrams flag were exposed, he would attract endless trouble and even be killed. The Beijing Azure Dragon halberd and the Universe 8 trigrams flag were both 5th-grade spirit treasures. As for the immortal refining cauldron, it was needless to say. Gu Qingmu. Song Sherluan said with a slight nod. This person's strength is extraordinary. As early as 3 years ago, his Yuan power cultivation reached the 6th level of the Star Realm, and he has mastered several high-level martial arts. Moreover, he is also a Grade 2 alchemist. Usually, he receives guidance from the Medicine King, Lin Feng, and his mental energy is very powerful. I heard that some geniuses of the same generation couldn't even withstand his powerful mental energy pressure, and were defeated before they even made a move. He is simply a monster. Medicine King Lin Feng was the only grade 4 alchemist in the current Dachu dynasty. Not only was he the president of the Alchemist Association, but he was also the pavilion master of the Pavilion of Prince Ting. He was in charge of the life and death of nearly 1,000 disciples and elders. How many disciples does this person have? Are they all over the world? Hearing this, Fei Ren's eyes revealed a thoughtful expression. Back in the Forgotten Worry Valley, he had learned from Shun Lan that Lin Feng was a disciple of the Pavilion of Prince Ting about 30 years ago before he became the Medicine King. However, he later became the disciple of the miraculous doctor, Shen Tianjun. Coupled with his extraordinary talent, he grew all the way to the illustrious Medicine King of the Dachu dynasty. Therefore, Fei Ren wasn't too surprised that Lin Feng was able to inherit the position of the Pavilion Master of the Pavilion of Prince Ting. After all, in the martial arts world, strength was respected. Other than his identity as a grade 4 alchemist, Lin Feng was also a high-star realm martial artist. Moreover, his realm wasn't low. "Brother Fei, what's wrong?" Seeing that Fei Ren was deep in thought, Song Shiluan also opened his mouth and asked with a puzzled expression. Although Gu Qingmu's strength wasn't weak, in his heart, Fei Ren in front of him was also very strong. He might not necessarily lose to him. If he was lucky, he might even be able to fight his way into the top 10. After all, the rules of the World Hero competition were to take turns to battle. There was only a short break in the middle. If Gu Qingmu had experienced a few fierce battles and used up a lot of his origin power, and he finally met an opponent like Fei Ren, there was a high chance that he would be defeated. However, this was only Song Shiluan's personal guess. He would never have thought that even if Gu Qingmu was in his peak condition, he was far from being a match for Fei Ren. It's fine. Other than this guy, how is the strength of the young disciples of the Qingyuan sect and Lingjian school? Shaking his head, Fei Ren asked again, indicating that he was fine. The name of the young disciple of the Lingjian school is Ren Jianan. His origin power cultivation is also at the 6th level of the star realm, but his strength is higher than Gu Qingmu's. Moreover, he cultivates the Lingjian school's signature technique, the 9 sword arts of the azure sky. He can transform one sword into 10,000 swords, and the power of his sword qi is comparable to that of a quasi-5th level martial art. Even a martial artist at the 8th level of the star realm wouldn't dare to underestimate him. A quasi-5th level martial art? Hearing this, Fei Ren's jaw dropped. His face was full of shock. One had to know that his 5 Mountain King capturing palm was only a quasi-4th level martial art. However, Ren Jianan's 9 sword arts of the azure sky was indeed comparable to that of a quasi-5th level martial art. How could he not be shocked? A quasi-5th level martial art was extremely rare even in the Dachu dynasty. It was worthy of being the signature technique of the Lingjian school's 9 ranks of the great families. That's right. I heard that Ren Jianan has already cultivated the 9 sword arts of the azure sky to perfection. He will be a strong opponent in this World Hero competition. He is even more dangerous than Gu Qingmu. Nodding his head, Song Shiluan said with lingering fear. He seemed to have heard of Ren Jianan's strength. No wonder the disciples of the Lingjian school are so arrogant. Among the 9 ranks of the great families of the Dachu dynasty, the Lingjian school's strength was ranked first. The Qingyuan sect and the Pavilion of Prince Ting were second. This was also the reason why the imperial court had a good relationship with the Lingjian school. As long as the Lingjian school was obedient, the other 9 ranks of the great families would not dare to cause trouble in the dark. What about the other person? The number 1 disciple of the Qingyuan sect is a new master. The outside world does not know much about him. I only know that he is called Su Sun. He is not weak and is only in his early 20s. Facing Fei Ren's question, Song Shiluan spoke again. Oh right, you said that the Crown Prince, Chu Jiuxing, is also participating in this World Hero competition? Fei Ren rubbed his chin as if he suddenly remembered something. He looked at Song Shiluan again. Yes, but these are all rumors. I can't be sure, but it should be possible. Song Shiluan nodded his head. Interesting. Looks like this World Hero competition is getting more and more complicated. Fei Ren narrowed his eyes as a hint of battle intent flashed across his face. The current Crown Prince, Chu Jiuxing, was the eldest son of the Emperor Chu Tianyang. He was also talented and was not weak. However, his only flaw was his simple and honest personality. Although he was a powerful martial artist, he was not a qualified heir to the throne. Therefore, Chu Tianyang was having a headache. After all, being born in the imperial family, there was no lack of open and covert struggles. A good person would not be a good emperor. He might even cause chaos in the world. However, these things had nothing to do with Fei Ren. He only wanted to get a good ranking in the World Hero competition. At the same time, he wanted to get a big reward. Chapter 208. Brother Fei, the opening ceremony is over. Looks like the World Hero competition is about to begin. At this time, Song Shiluan opened his mouth again. Just as they were talking, the list of participants for the World Hero competition was announced. Including the major forces in the Imperial City, the 3 ranks of the great families, and some young geniuses from other provinces, there were about 500 participants. Even if it was a one-on-one duel, one day was far from enough to determine the winner of the competition. Therefore, the World Hero competition would usually last for 3 days until the top 20 warriors were determined. At the same time, they would receive a large amount of rewards. Yes, the Emperor and those old fellows from the sects have also appeared. Nodding his head, Fei Ren raised his eyes and looked at the central square not far away. He saw that on top of the city tower, there were a few powerful figures with strong auras standing quietly. They were the upper echelons of the 3 ranks of the great families. In front of these sect elders, a middle-aged man wearing a purple and gold dragon robe stood with his hands behind his back. His eyebrows were like swords, and his dark eyes revealed a touch of depth. At the same time, his entire body emitted the aura of a king. Even the upper echelons of the 9 ranks of the great families did not dare to be negligent and stood behind him. The Emperor of Great Chu, Chu Tianyang. Chu Tianyang was the only person in the world who could make the upper echelons of the 9 ranks of the great families bow and bend their knees. Moreover, Chu Tianyang was also the only person in the Dachu dynasty who was infinitely close to the martial master realm. His strength had already reached the half-step martial master realm. Your Majesty, it's about time to begin. At the back, a Lingjian school elder stepped forward and cupped his hands. Why is there only a few of you? Where's Ren Jianlong? Glancing at the Lingjian school elder beside him, Chu Tianyang frowned slightly. Unlike the other 2 schools of the 9 ranks of the great families, the Lingjian school had a close relationship with the imperial court and the imperial family. Now that the World Hero competition had begun, the Lingjian school's first seat had not yet arrived. They had only sent a few sect elders, which made him feel somewhat displeased. Replying to Your Majesty, the first seat was delayed by some matters. He is currently on his way, and will probably reach the imperial city in less than half a day. Perhaps sensing the displeasure on Chu Tianyang's face, the Lingjian school elder acted as if he was facing a great enemy. Immediately, he cupped his hands and spoke respectfully. A drop of cold sweat involuntarily slid down his forehead. Clearly, he felt an enormous pressure in the face of Chu Tianyang's powerful aura. Ren Jianlong was the head of the Lingjian school, one of the 9 ranks of the great families. At the same time, He was one of the few martial artists in the Dachu dynasty who had reached the 10th level of the Star Realm. His strength was second only to Emperor Chu Tianyang, and he was quite famous in the Dachu dynasty. However, he kept a low profile, so only Chu Tianyang and some higher-ups of the Lingjian school could get in touch with him. "You may leave." Hearing this, Chu Tianyang immediately flicked his sleeve, indicating for the Lingjian school elder to leave. After all, Ren Jianlong was considered a powerful martial artist in the Dachu dynasty. Moreover, he was also the head of the 9 ranks of the great families. He couldn't say much about a small delay, so as to avoid causing a conflict between the two sides. In the end, the Chu imperial family still had to rely on the support of these sects and forces in order to maintain its stability. "Your Majesty, Ren Jianlong has always been slow. It's not strange that he would be late." After the Lingjian school elder left, a white-robed young man laughed faintly. Then, his figure flickered and he came to Chu Tianyang's side. His pale face was very handsome, and there was even a hint of feminine charm between his brows. It was actually strangely feminine. "Lin Feng, who do you think will take first place in this World Conference of Heroes?" Glancing at the white-robed young man beside him, Chu Tianyang's aura was like an abyss. Then, he withdrew his gaze and said faintly. Although the white-robed young man in front of him only looked to be in his 20s and was as handsome as a beautiful woman, his actual bone age was already over 50. However, because he had a technique to retain his youthful appearance and had swallowed some pills, his appearance didn't change much. He still looked like a young man. As for the alchemist in the Dachu dynasty who had such ability, there was only one medicine king, Lin Feng. "If I say His Highness the Crown Prince, will your Majesty feel that I'm too flattering?" However, with His Highness the Crown Prince's strength, if nothing unexpected happens, taking first place is indeed not a problem. As if sensing Chu Tianyang's thoughts, a folding fan suddenly appeared in Lin Feng's hand, as he said with a light smile, "You understand my thoughts." As his voice fell, Chu Tianyang's expression also froze, then he laughed loudly. "Your Majesty, more than 500 participating martial artists have all arrived. This is the list of participants." At this moment, a figure flashed across the top of the city tower. Then, a dark-faced man in a black robe with a determined expression landed steadily. The next moment, he stepped in front of Chu Tianyang. At the same time, he was holding a file in his hand. There wasn't the slightest fluctuation of emotion on his weathered face. The black-robed man's name was Su Tianqing. He was the sect master of the Qingyuan sect of the 9 ranks of the great families. His strength was also unfathomable, and he was no weaker than Ren Jianlong. He was also a 10th-level Star Realm martial artist. However, compared to the former, Su Tianqing's personality was straightforward and reserved. In the eyes of outsiders, he was more rigid. "Pass down my order. The World Hero competition will begin immediately." Glancing at Su Tianqing in front of him, Chu Tianyang raised his hand and took the file. Then, he waved his sleeve and said, "Under the attention of tens of thousands of people, the highly anticipated World Hero competition finally began. According to the rules of the World Hero competition, the martial arts competition on the first day was only the preliminary round. Everyone would fight one round, and the winner would advance to the second day's semifinals. As for the opponents, they would be randomly selected. Although it was only the preliminary round on the first day, the atmosphere and popularity of the World Hero competition was not low at all. A large number of spectating martial artists and even commoners had gathered around the central square. There were also some Imperial city guards who had set up a protective zone to prevent these people from being affected by the aftershocks of the duels. "Every participant, come up and draw your own number. The next number you draw will be your next opponent." At this moment, in the central square, a middle-aged man in a martial arts robe stood quietly. Next to him was a wooden box that was sealed on 3 sides with only one opening. He seemed to be the judge of the World Hero competition this time. Because the World Hero competition used a random selection system, the opponents were also random. Therefore, there was a bit of luck involved. If one was lucky and drew a weaker opponent, they could easily advance to the second day's semifinals. If one was unlucky, they could draw a genius disciple from the 3 or 9 ranks of the great families, or even the Crown Prince Chu Jiuxing. Then, they would be eliminated on the first day of the preliminary round. If one was unlucky, they might even lose their life. After all, the World Hero competition did not have a rule that one could not kill. Everything depended on the outcome. After a while, more than 500 martial artists had drawn their numbers. Number 16, holding a gray ball in his hand, 2 big words were carved in the middle of the ball. Fei Ren pondered. According to the rules, his opponent was the participant who held the number 17 ball. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.